Good evening, bonsoir, bienvenue à la séance ordinaire le 30 octobre. Welcome to the special public meeting on October 30th. Ms. Parker, do we have any declaration of conflict of interest?
There were no conflicts of interest declared.
All right. Well, welcome to everyone that's on Facebook with us. It's going to be a long meeting. For new council, please don't be shy to ask questions. I know this is your first time budget. We've done part one. We're going to part two. If you have any questions, this evening is the time to be asking some of these questions. We will not be voting this evening, but Sonia will, or Ms. Gauvin will require some direction from council on a couple of topics. So we'll move along and go from there. Madame Gauvin, bonjour. Je vous donne le micro.
Merci. Bonsoir. Good evening. So, ce soir, c'est la deuxième partie du budget, la première étant le 11 octobre. Donc, pour les citoyens qui écoutent, for anybody listening at home, if there are some gaps in what we're presenting tonight, s'il y a des écarts dans ce qu'on présente ce soir, you can go view on Facebook or on the city's webpage, part one, which was October 11th meeting. La rencontre était le 11 octobre. Donc, si vous voulez avoir plus d'informations sur les parties qui ne seront pas présentées ce soir. When building the yearly budget, we have to consider that there are 4 budgets within the overall budget. In general terms, this means that the municipal operations are considered similar in many respects to small companies. In other words, that the city has sometimes companies that talk to each other and sometimes they don't. And that is done through funds. So we will start, first of all, with the funds versus funds. So if you look on the left, you have the difference between the general fund and the utility fund. The general one covers general government services, protective services, transportation, environmental health, environmental development, recreational and cultural, as well as fiscal, versus utility covers water and sewage and fiscal services. When you go on the right, you also have operational versus capital, and it is mostly paid by the operation is really paid by your property taxes on an operating basis. So on the operational side, you will have your annual facility and activity operating costs, maintenance, services, supplies, and on the capital side, you will have the acquisition or replacement for tangible capital assets. And when we say tangible, it's because it's a purchase that you can physically touch versus intangible where you can't touch. So in public accounting, it's always the tangible. And it's an asset that confers a benefit over 1 year. So that's what we consider when we talk about capital versus operational. Altogether, we end up with the 4 funds that we'll be talking over tonight: the general operating fund, the utility operating fund, the general capital fund, and the utility capital fund. Anything that's in the general fund will mostly be paid by property taxes, versus anything that's on the utility side is a user pay that will be paid mostly by user fees. So just to give a highlight of what it is. So without further ado, this is the bigger one. We presented the 3 other ones on October 11th. So this is the first time we're showing this draft to council. And as a word of caution, before diving in, this is the first version of a draft budget. The discussion with council tonight serves as a guide for staff in the required adjustments for future drafts until the final version is ready for resolution. So we keep building that up. Information is still coming in and changes the results on a daily basis. Some of the missing information is critical and will change the orientation of decisions. So tonight, you will see we're not proposing any tax rates for this first draft because we are missing too many information. So a bit of a reminder, on January 1st of this year, through the municipal reform, the city of Bathurst has been redefined with new boundaries. So before the municipal reform, both local districts that were joining Bathurst would only pay for their direct costs, and all shared services would be paid by the old city of Bathurst boundaries. Since January 1st, both local districts that joined Bathurst still pay for their direct cost, as does the old Bathurst city. Because the local districts have a tax rate that is lower than the old Bathurst, the provincial government has allowed a transitional period. The transition committee at the time has approved a 6 years transition, so 2024 marks the second year. Every year, the local districts will catch up to a common rate where they can fully pay for their full share of shared services. In the meantime, we talk about transitional funding, which is the amount of money that is coming from the old Bathurst City warrant to pay for the local district shared service they can't afford yet. As you can see on the map, the yellow section is the old city limits, which is signed as Ward 1, and the gray section is defined as Ward 2, and used to be part of the rural districts managed by the government of New Brunswick, and altogether they make the new city of Bathurst. The municipal reform rules dictates that each local or subunits can only pay for services received through their tax rate. This means 3 different tax rates based on 3 different sets of property assessments. The services that are shared between all 3 subunits are divided amongst their assessment value. So this is why we're presenting the map, is because when you see the tables, they are divided per subunit. So you have the shared services throughout that are the revenues and expenses that are shared through the whole territory. Then you have the sections that is segregated to North Tetegush. And then the government calls it Bathurst and Big River, but it covers a lot more than just Big River and leftover Bathurst. It's really quite a big area. And then you will have the old Bathurst City for the total 2024 budget, and then you will have the difference. So the first thing we need to talk about is the equalization grant. So on October 11th, we discussed the equalization grant, and we showed how the core funding would decrease 20% per year starting 2023 and redistribute it to the regional service commissions. We also talked about that new redistribution that was now regulated through the Regional Service Support Fund, or RSSF, and we had presented that 2024 amount eligible for distribution for 2024 was $508,000 for the delivery of regional initiatives. On October 25th, which is just last Wednesday, the provincial government announced that an additional amount is being granted to the Regional Service Commission Fund. So for the Chaleur region, the amount is $210,000 additional. So on top of the $508,000, the Chaleur Regional Commission will receive an additional $210,000. We are waiting on the Chaleur Regional Service Commission for the distribution, and it will be used for initiatives in 2024, or it can be pushed to 2025. This could have a material impact on the current CRSC's budget. So when we get that information, it will be packaged. Although there has been discussion surrounding the fund and the distribution of the fees, the city has not received a revised budget. So the distribution of the RSSF remains the same in this table. And that's why when we talked about you will see throughout the whole budget, we show it as in one table, but throughout the whole budget, you will see these line items spread across different sections. They are the same as what we presented on October 11th, for the simple fact that we have not received any revised documents, and their budget is only getting reviewed, I think, mid-November. I'm not sure.
November 15th. Madame
November
Gauvin, do you
15th.
mind taking a question?
No?
Deputy Mayor Anderson?
Thank you, Your Worship. Sorry, Sonia, just one question in regards to the $210,000 additional. Is that to be allocated as per the current guidelines where it has to go towards a specific project up to maximum of 50%?
From what we saw, it is according to the same guidelines, but it really is something that just popped up last week, so I think everybody's trying to understand it yet.
Okay.
Sorry. So we haven't received any much information other than the 210.
Okay, thanks.
Well, Deputy Mayor, Councilor Burnett.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Through you, to Sonia, that $200,000 that they're going to receive, will that be explained before November the 15th or on November the 15th? That puts their total expenses up to what, $800,000, does it?
$719,250.
Yeah, the total fund, the 508 plus 210, it would be 720. We don't know. We don't know. They have the option, because it's quite a short span, the government has given them the option that if they already finished their budget and everything's going fine, they can integrate it in 2025 if they want to, or if they're not balanced yet, or if they still can work on it, then if they have initiatives for it, they can put it in 2024. But we haven't had any updates on what they will do yet.
Councillor Burnett, if that may help, myself and Deputy Mayor Anderson actually have a meeting next Wednesday. We have another public meeting next Wednesday with the Regional Service Commission.
So this 200,000 that's been added by the provincial government could help us out as well?
We don't know. We don't have the details. It came in last week, so we will find out more next week. So at this point, but it won't be coming to us. It goes to them. But we'll have to wait till next week to see
Thank you.
what they're going to present.
Merci.
Bienvenue.
So throughout the budget, you will still see the full of their fees spread throughout, as was shown on October 11th. Excuse me, the thing is cutting. So the shared recreational services as well. So last time we talked about how it was being divided. So in this draft, we won't explain again the differences between the formula on this meeting unless there's question, but just so that you know, the version that is input into this first general budget draft is the one with the formula recommended by the committee. So it still needs to be voted on and steps taken with the RSC and approved budget, but for us, since it's recommended by the committee, that's what's being input into the sections. This would provide revenues of $320 in cost recovery for shared recreational installation altogether, and you'll see in the respective sections where they go. If that formula is approved again, this would be the new distribution. So first of all, as you can see, just with the Regional Service Commission's budget, critical information is yet to be confirmed, which will have a material impact on everybody's bottom line. So information is to be confirmed, include the RSSF funding, particularly the new granted money, the expense budget, especially the new regional transportation service being proposed, as well as the new shared recreational installation formula, with the first change proposed for the aquatic center. So we're all kind of waiting to see what will happen on that, and those are all items that, because we don't have a definitive answer yet, will have a very much a big impact on the bottom line. So keep that in mind. When we look at inflation, just to let you know, those are spread throughout many, many sections of the budget. So the budget for 2024 for the insurance is $379, and that's a slight increase on the budget based on 2020, or the actual 2023, because in 2023's budget, we didn't know how it was going to cost for insurance for the new fire stations for Ward 2. So we had put a buffer in to make sure that we were covered, but it was pretty much steady instead. So we are confident at 380 that we can cover the insurance for what we have as the knowledge for now, but obviously the fees come later on. For the fuel, compared to the actual 2021, which was 396, we now have to budget 658 throughout the whole city. So it has been increasing since 2022 quite a bit. The revenues, so now we'll look at the major items that are divided within many sections of the budget. We can now look at the specific sections, starting with the revenues. So for the property tax warrant, that's what everybody's been waiting for. Don't worry, I'll blow this up a little bit more and it'll be bigger. I like my tables, but to look at, I blow them up. So the assessment for the city of Bathurst as a whole, and I'm talking about the whole city of Bathurst, not just Ward 1 or Ward 2, it's an increase by 8%, all locals combined. And this table shows the value for each of them with their associated current rates. When I say current rates, it's because this is exactly the same rates as last year's approved budget. And the warrant shows is based on the 1.7 times multiplier for non-residential properties. So residential versus non-residential. I promise I blow it up. This is the blown up version. So on the residential side, North Tedigush saw an increase of 11% for an increase in value of 7.8 million. I call them the other LSD, the other local districts, because other Bathurst and Big River I thought was limiting. So when you see other local districts, it's everybody else than North Tedigush. The value increased 9% for a value of 10 million. Old Bathurst increased 9% for a value of 82.8 million, and for a total blended 9% on the residential side. Versus the non-residential side, North Tedigush saw a higher increase of 5% with an increase of 10,000. The other local district 3% for 370,000, and Old City Bathurst 3% at a value of 6 million. But when we talk about percentage, you can see that the 1% does not affect every section to the same value. So when we talk about percent, we need to be careful. So a total non-residential 3% at a higher value of 6.4 on the non-residential. What does it translate to in the property tax warrant? So after we collect the current tax rate with the assessment, we get an amount of 626 for North Tedigush, and the other local districts 1 million, Bathurst City 24.4 for a total warrant of 26.1 million. Last year, all combined was 24.3 million, so there's an increase of 1.8 million between 2024 and 2023. A little bit in the assessment analysis to understand it a little bit better. Every year, or for past 3 years, I think, we've been receiving presentation from Service New Brunswick, and they are responsible for our assessments. So they provide us with information so that we can understand the value of our assessments. And in this dashboard, you can see the summary for the city of Bathurst. The number of building permits issued in 2023 for 2024's assessment was 118 versus 89 in 2022. So an increase in building permits. The value of the building permits was lower than the previous years, however, because the change in assessment for new construction was 0.78% for a value of 10.6 million versus 1.44 last year for a value of 17 million, with a lower number of building permits. If we now look at the change due to the reassessment, the best indicator for property values for Service New Brunswick is market sounding. The best market sounding for properties is when property sells. We really know at that time what people are ready to pay for that property. So in 2022, there were 383 arm's length transactions reflected in 2023's assessment. And in 2023, for 2024's assessment, there were 266. So the high number of property transfer creates a great source of information to have a closer reflection of the property values within the city. The result was an increase in value of 7.26 for 2024's assessment versus 5.64 in 2023. When you look at the median for the annual value of what are the sales price throughout the province, so the diagram shows that Fundy and Chaleur both saw increases in residential property sales value versus Beauséjour and Vallée, where decreases were registered in property sales. They both had increases in previous years. More specifically, for the Chaleur region, the market sales price was $171,000. The change in assessment for all properties in Bathurst, the graph shows what percent of properties has changed their property assessments by increments of 5%. So none of the properties in Bathurst saw a decrease in their assessment. 4% had no change in their assessment value. 18.5% had an increase between 0.01 and 5%. 23.4% had an increase between 5 to 10. And 54.1% have an increase over 10%. at the provincial comparison, historically Bathurst has been recording lower increases compared to the province overall, but it doesn't mean that it's not faring well either. So for 2024's budget, the assessment for Bathurst has increased by 8.04 versus the province as a whole 10.64. And when you compare with other cities, so you have Dieppe with the highest increase again this year, was the same last year, then Moncton, Fredericton, St. John, and Miramichi, with Bathurst in 6th place, and Campbellton and Edmonton equally in 7th place. So you have to be careful when you talk about percentage, however. When you take the same 8 cities and you segregate them within, you have that document on the back of your packages for all the municipalities, but when you highlight the 8 cities to have a comparison, you can see that the impact of the increase of a single percent has a bigger impact in Dieppe, Fredericton, Moncton, and St. John, so the cities, all the cities in the south. Their increase in percentage is not that far from the one in Bathurst, but their increase will have an additional tax revenue of over 12 million for each of them. Some have 18 million, so for Moncton. So Moncton has 18.8 million additional tax revenue with a lower tax rate than Bathurst. When you look at the overall, you can clearly see that 1% in the south of the province is very different than a 1% in the north when you translate in tax revenue. So that has to be very much taken in mind, because you can increase as much as you want in percentage. How it translates in money is very different, and the capacity to do work with that same money. And if you look at the core grant we talked about earlier, we're getting 20% reduction every year. All of the column for core grant will get to 0. If you look at Moncton, they're getting 8%, I see, 18.8 million in additional tax revenue with a lower tax rate, but they're still getting that 1.9 million in core grant. St. John 1.5, Fredericton 1.2 will all get to 0, but the transition is quite different than here in the north.
We're going to be to 0 probably by next year.
Small increments, 20% gets small increments. So tax rate, we show this every year. On the left, you have the 8 cities about where their tax rates are in 2023, based on the provincial statistical report. The average is 1.5975, and on the right, you have the provisional rate positioning, with Campbellton being in 1st place, Bathurst being in 2nd place, Miramichi 3rd, Dalhousie 4th, then Edmundston, Saint François, Pointe-Verte, Beresford tied head. So it's not surprising to see, with the services that are being delivered in a city versus a village or a town, they typically deliver higher level of services. But when you don't have access to the same tax assessment like in the south, it's not surprising that 4 of the cities that are in the north show on that top 10 list to the right either.
I think what we also have to not forget is that housing, let's say we'll use Moncton as an example, their house assessment, it'll be worth double what ours is. And then, so if they go up by 13%, so their property taxes, even though is lowered, their property taxes is unbelievable compared to the north. So
Absolutely.
yeah, it makes a big difference for them as well.
It does. So as a reference, I looked it up. Bathurst has been at 1.775 since 2014 as a reference. So moving on to the unconditional grant. As we mentioned earlier, 20% is being reduced every year. So that's close to 40,000, as you can see. So yes, small increments. It will get to 0 by 5 years. On top of that, in 2024, the equalization portion is also being reduced by 229 compared to last year. So this means going from an equalized grant of close of 3.8 million to 3.5 million. That's a decrease of 270 total. And the distribution of the grant is based on the total expenses prorated in each section. So for each of the subunit, it's divided prorated on the expenses that are there now. If the expenses change column or adjusted before we finish the budget, that will also be readjusted accordingly. If we look at the section of local taxes, so we have the tourism levy. This is a tax that hotel collect on behalf of the city, and the city reinvests in tourism. So the expected amount for 2024 is $240,000 versus $200,000 in 2023, and that amount is fully shared amongst everyone. Services provided by other government. So the city delivers services to other governments or neighboring municipalities. The revenues are shown in this table. And starting with fire services, the Saint Anne Fire Service renders service to its surrounding municipalities. So that generates $231,000, and this amount was increased by $17,000 compared to 2023. The variance is because in 2023, we had not accounted for the revenue generated for services rendered to the Papineau Falls nations. The rest of the $3,000 is for the increase in eligible fees. The government of New Brunswick establishes the eligible cost recoveries, and since all the other localities are part of the remaining locals, so all the services that they are being delivered to are still rural districts. That's why the government right now is saying what's a cost recovery and not a cost recovery. And so although the budget increased from 393 eligible expenses in 2023 to 507 in 2024, the province takes the previous year's budget in their calculations, and new investments will only be eligible for the cost recovery in 2025. So that unfortunately will create a gap in what's being cost recovered for the Saint Anne Fire Station. The other $30,000 showed here is for hazmat cost recovery, and it has an associated expense in the expense section. The police, they seem to have 175 additional revenue for integrated enforcement unit services, but it's simply a reclassification from sales and services, fines, and other fees from, we'll see on the next slide. It represents a cost recovery of $115,000 for police officer and $60,000 for administrative assistant. Dispatch services are offered to the BNPP as well as fire dispatch to many municipalities in the Charlotte region, Restigouche, and Acadian Peninsula. In addition, it dispatches call for 911. Altogether, the fees for 2024 are $992,000 versus $947,000 in 2023. That's an increase of $44,000. Highway maintenance and lane markings completed on behalf of the Department of Transportation have no projected change at $161,000 and $18,994. These amounts are not covering the full cost of maintaining them on behalf of the province. That should be said. Finally, the last change comes in the recreational installations shared services. Through the regional service commissions, the participating municipalities now have to share costs. So as we mentioned, with the formula that we did integrate through that, the revenue that we explained previously is $320,000. Sales of services and other fees, the decrease of $146,000 in police services include the reclassification for the IEU services we just talked about. The full amount is lower than the reclassification because it was budgeted lower in 2023. Casey Irving has a budgeted decrease of $122,000 in revenues in 2023. The anticipated basketball games had been a big part of the projection, and there had been overestimated in other events that we thought that we would generate higher revenues. So altogether, this creates less rental revenues for $35,000 and $120,000 in bar and concessions. The impact is minimized by increase in the projected box office charges for $33,000. The rest of the amount in this section is miscellaneous cost recoveries. Other revenues from other sources have a total increase of $143,000, and in licenses and permits, building permits have an additional budget of $19,500, and demolition cost recoveries have an additional $10,500 for the total increase of $33,000. And the rentals at the waterfront have an additional budgeted revenue of $13,000. And finally, in fines and interest fees, there is an additional $100,000 for interest fees generated from positive bank balances in the bank account. other government transfers. So for 2024, the budgeted government transfers are grants to recover through expenses for specific projects. They include the Daily Point, that's the continuing ongoing include a small one for Daily Points and the other projects where we're getting government funding for recreational study, the pool feasibility, as well as the fire master plan. Those are all grants that started in 2023 for the start of the project. This is the leftover that will translate for next year. Other transfers, so they are divided between each subunits. So you will see that in North Tetegush, the 14,350 represents the surplus they had in 2022, and the one for Bathurst as well for 339,000. Unfortunately, the other local districts had a deficit, so we will see an expense in the expense section. Transfers from other fund, the 407,000 that is shown there is charges made to the utility fund for administrative services rendered, and the federal PILT is simply an adjustment that's received from the government through our property taxes. They had one last year when they did our tax rates, but this year there was none, so there's no adjustment there. Any questions before I go to the revenues?
We're good. Oh, Councillor Burnett.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Through you to Madam Covet. You said you checked back, and we haven't had an increase in the tax rate since 2014. Is that what you said? Okay, but the bills that come into our homes every year has increased, even though the tax rate has stayed the same. What has the value? What monies have come in that are different from 2014 total to 2023 total because of assessments and because of building and because of different things that happened in our city? We're taking a lot more money in 2023, and the homeowner's paying for it. So what's the difference in the income compared to 2014? Do you have that?
I don't know if compared to 2014, I didn't look that far, but I know that since...
Well, you brought up 2014 as...
well, it's just for the tax rate, but I did take out since, because the big jumps come since post-COVID, 2022. Before that, it was very, very small increments. The big assessments have been in the past 3 years. Those are the big jumps. And since the 2021, it's 5.1 million that came in extra.
Since 2021, another 5.1 million came in from tax base.
Including 2024.
Including 2000.
Yes.
That's 5. Okay, thank you. 5 million more, or 6 million, almost.
The exact number is 5,165,690.
Close to 5. Thank you. Thank you.
Any?
Yep.
Good. Just gonna have a drink.
Take a drink.
I was hoping for more questions just to have another. Those are my breaks.
Take a sip whenever you want.
All right, expenses. So now we go into the specific services. So the first one is general government services. So they're almost all shared with just a few exceptions where you'll notice. They include legislative, administrative, financial management, common services, and other general government services. So the first one is council's budget. So as you can see, the legislative expenses are budgeted at $411,000 versus $442,000 in 2023. And in the previous budget, there was uncertainty with the newly formed budget. So when we did the 2023 budget, it was just before the municipal reform. We had to put an amount because some municipalities were reviewing their salary increases for a new charge that was coming in. So we didn't take any chances because after that it would have been too late. So we put that in as a contingency if council was going to add an additional salary. So that's why we have more detail in the next slides, but that's why you see a decrease in the mayor and councilors' salaries, because although you did not get that increase because we didn't receive a resolution from council to look at those salaries again, we had put that in as a contingency if it was going to be reviewed with 2 new councilors and a whole new mandate.
All right, so it was put in there as a precaution in case, but I was just going to say that is not the mayor's salary and that's not council's salary.
Well, that's the total budget. That's not
Yeah.
even just the salaries. That's the total budget, so
Yeah.
it's not even.
Good idea to maybe break that number
In the
down a
next
little
slide.
bit?
Next slide.
Okay.
Yeah,
One
I
step ahead of
know.
you.
When I looked at it today, I'm like, oh, we got to explain that one.
No.
No.
So wages, so the mayor on the side is always a one-liner and council on the other one. So for council, that includes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I think you're 9. So all of those wages are divided by 9. So as you can see, we had budgeted higher, but you did not get that amount, nor did mayor. So I just want to put that out there. For travel, there has been discussions in previous council meeting. They were public meetings about the travel expenses to start looking at an increased amount. So for the mayor, what we have in this for 10,400 includes those changes. So they have travel for the 8 cities, AFMNB, UMNB, and FCM in Calgary. So those are all for the AGMs. It also includes the AFMNB roundtable and a discretionary fund of 2,500. For the travel for councillors, it includes the same travel events for all councillors with a slightly reduced amount, since there is an assumption that not all would be able to go. So all would have access to go, but we're assuming that maybe 1 or 2 just wouldn't be able to get to, so we're planning for that a little bit. And they would each have a discretionary travel budget of 1,000, since all major events are already included in the base amount. The mileage for both mayor and council is according to the per diem times the number of individuals. Advertising has been decreased on the mayor's side to reflect a closer amount to what is being used. Liability on council's side is simply transferred to general liability farther down. And goods for mayor and council include the items for the Christmas parade and the hospitality days parade. They normally go to 2 golf tournaments and small miscellaneous items for budgets. So, any questions for council's budget discussions?
Conseiller Leblanc?
Merci, Madame la mairesse. Juste pour revenir, parce que conseillère Anderson, député, mairesse adjointe. Anderson disait tout à l'heure, je venais qu'à l'avoir à un moment donné. Pour les salaires aussi, juste pour clarifier, parce que si on regarde là, c'est que ça marque ton salaire à 68 000, mais vraiment, c'est pas un salaire, c'est les frais que ça coûte à la ville, c'est comme une entreprise, right? C'est comme si je run ma business, je te donne 50 000 par année, ça me coûte 68 à peu près pour te donner ça. Ouais, c'est tout ça, OK. Les frais, là. Je voulais juste clarifier, parce que je sais que je vais me faire poser la question plus tard. Ça fait que je voulais clarifier cette partie-là. Merci.
Councillor Legacy.
I'm just curious about some of these numbers. I'm guessing it's just reallocating it to proper, like the telephone and whatnot.
Yes, that with the telephone, if I'm not mistaken, was in the clerk's budget. So it was looking as though the clerk had a really good cell phone, which it was just your telephone equipment multiplied by many ones. So we just reclassified it.
Okay, perfect.
All right,
Yeah.
we're good to go. Oh, Councillor Burnett?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. In the travel budget, during COVID, everything was frozen. There was no meetings, and things are just starting to get back to normal. And the cities and that are starting to have their meetings on a regular basis. Did we spend all our budget last year? Did we go over? Or do we have enough here for 2024, seeing that the meetings are starting to open up again?
The meetings have started. We've seen the trend come since 2022. So really, everybody started getting out there in 2022. There's a lot of it that's available online for courses and stuff like that, but the meetings itself, they really started getting back on it in 2022. Now it's just that there's a lot more views on the AGMs or the big ones that usually we wouldn't participate in that now we've started to look at. So from what I'm gathering from the list that we're seeing over here, it's really recommendations from council where they have gone, maybe 1 or 2 people that have gone to one of them and recommend that the others participate as well. So these are events that 1 or 2 of you would go, but now it's just the amounts of councillors that are being added.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So, Councillor Burnett, just so for everybody to be aware, this is not set in stone, it's recommendation. We also need to balance budget. And you will see once we get to the end, if we are not balancing, so even though we're getting more property taxes, it's costing more. Fuel is more, insurance is more, hydro is more, so there's more costs. So we will have to make decisions, and that might be one of them that we might look at, is travel. So, does that answer your question, Deputy Mayor Aronson? I knew you were lit up.
I was just going to comment, like, for example, with the FCM this year, Kim and I were the only two that were able to attend due to budget constraints. And we found it unfortunate that other council members weren't able to attend. And when we were there, the majority of municipalities that were represented there had 4, 5, 6, 7 members of their council with them. So we were kind of at a disadvantage. And we felt it was, it was too bad that other council members weren't able to attend.
Yeah. We even felt that Mr. Pettigrew should have been there.
Yeah.
We felt that Mr. Chris Legacy should have been there, because we couldn't be everywhere, and it was such, and I know Councillor Willett and Councillor Hondas had went, and there's so much information that you're able to gather and come back with, and we were actually outnumbered. Like the small municipalities like Shediac had like 6 people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agree, if you can get more councillors there, the better it is, because you're sitting with somebody from Alberta and you realize they don't pave most of the roads in Alberta, and yet we pave everything, you know, and little things like that when you're talking to different councillors, what they do and what they don't do, invaluable when it comes back to setting some of your projects, et cetera.
Exactly. Good. All right.
Good. All right, so the administrative budget is for total 256 increase. The manager's budget shows an increase of 125 at first glance. However, I've seen Mr. Pettigrew's eyes going, holy. But it's due to salary transfers from the clerk's department. So we have one employee that was typically assigned to that department. We just reclassified that salary to the proper organizational structure. It's just a transfer from the clerk's department to the manager's department. The rest is for increased travel budget to attend the Canadian Association of Municipal Administrators, or the CAMA, Court French, CAMA, C-A-M-A, we'll spell it, conference. The decrease in the clerk's budget for $87,000 is for the previously mentioned reclassification for $77,000, and the other miscellaneous expenses, so travel, telephone equipment, which we saw was redistributed to council's budget, and training as well. The Human Resource Department has been under budgeted for the past 2 years, and now that required work has been started and ongoing, it needs to be budgeted accordingly. So that's why it translates to an amount of $133,000. There is an increase of $57,000 for additional external solicitor services for $44,000, and for regular salary increases with upcoming travel equipment. So that is the legal service line. And in the communications, it has a total increase of $23,000, where $20,000 would go for a public mass notification system. This type of notification system has for purpose to simultaneously broadcast real-time alerts and information to registered citizens. This means in case of an alert or important messaging, the registered citizen would receive a text, voicemail, or email, and geofencing areas could be defined to alert specific sections of the city in case of water break affecting a limited area. So that's the increase in communications. It is a suggestion to have that public mass notification system.
All right. We have a question from Councillor Knowles.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The increase in legal services, what's the rationale behind that? Did I miss that, or did you already explain that?
It's external solicitor fees, but maybe Mr. Pettigrew can elaborate on that one.
Yeah, Mr. Pettigrew.
Thank you, Worship. That would be for larger files that the city would be incorporated in, that wouldn't be handled, large corporate stuff. We can get Mr. LaPlante to give us some more details in an in-camera meeting on some of those legal files, but there are some extra external legal files that require third-party services.
Okay. We're good.
Okay. I don't like switching slides too fast. Financial management. Total financial management increases is for $94,000. There is a reclassification between purchasing and administration because of change in organizational structure. The rest of the amount is for a temporary vacancy and an additional financial analyst that was hired in 2023 to cover the vacancy. and then address increasing financial analysis for asset management and funded projects. Good. Common services, the training and development that are shared amongst, those are the common training that all staff take as a group, is decreased by $16,000 to cover that general corporate training. And as for the cost of assessment, the city is charged 0.0194% of its tax base with the 1.5 time multiplier for non-residential properties to pay for Service New Brunswick's assessment work. So because there is an assessment increase, the fees will also go up for all subunits for a total increase of $21,000. When we looked at the Regional Service Commission, we talked that there was a line about corporate, so that is the line corporate that is shown in this section right here. And for IT services budget, there is an increase of $225,000 for salary increases, equipment repairs, purchases and replaced, as well as an increase in fees paid for operational softwares. The other general government services, which is kind of the catch-all. We talked about insurance fees earlier in this presentation. The general liability fees in this section are for $273, so there are multiple lines in the budget, but this is the bigger one. So $273, which is a decrease of $91,000. Municipal Association has a budget of $47,000, which is an increase of $17,000, and it includes the memberships for the 8 cities, the Association francophone des municipalités du Nouveau-Brunswick, Conseil économique du Nouveau-Brunswick, Chaleur, Chamber of Commerce, Federation of Canadian Municipalities, and the Union of Municipalities of New Brunswick. Local Improvement Assessment is a transfer to the Utility Operating Fund, and it sees no change in the budget. And lastly, for that same one section, the grants.
All right, we have a question from Councillor Burnett.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Could you go back a slide, please?
Yes.
The one IT. Is that, says the budget will increase $225,000? Is that for hiring of more people, or is that just covering what we have, or?
No, it's covering what we have.
Oh,
And it's mostly for the operational software increases in fees, because those contracts typically have an increase based on the CPI. So that just there creates an increase. So you have the operational software as well as equipment replacements. So the turnover of all the equipment.
oh, it's not just, it's not salaries. Okay, thank you.
Good.
We're good?
So the grants, this typically is the fun part. So on the left, you have what's already been granted, and because it has already been granted, it's already in this first draft budget. So you have the 2 BHS bursaries, both are $500 each for a total of $1,000. Same for the ESN. The New Brunswick Medical Education Foundation Scholarship, there are 2. And it's per year until 2025 for a total of $10,400. Sistema has a $15,000 grant until 2027, and the Old Post Office has a $20,000 grant for the Old Post Office. For North Tedegush, they came in and they made a request. We already included it in the first draft for the simple reason that they've always been receiving it from the provincial government for years and years and years. And so we already put it in the first draft. Obviously, they can all be looked at, but it's just we felt that it was always been there. For the right side, those are the new requests that came in, and when we come to the end with the bottom line, these are not included in. So the Bathurst Heritage Trust Commission came in for an operating grant of $12,000. Hospitality Days came in. Remember, there was $25,000 for 2023 and $25,000 for 2024 in their request. So this is the 2024 request. Victoria Enhancement Committee has asked for a park improvement grant for $5,000. The Club ATV Chaleur for the ATV Trails contribution asked for $35,000. And then I wrote the discretionary budget balance to be determined, because normally out of that amount, the line that would be the total for the Old Bathurst City was $204,000. There's $47,000 of that amount that's already distributed. So the balance we will need, and we will talk about that at the end when we have a bigger discussion on the grants. Mm-hmm. But we need to determine what's your amount that you want to set for this year, which grant do you want to pre-approve, and what amount do you want to have left over for the rest of the year 2024?
Madame Gauvin, if I can interrupt. So just, I know this, we need to vote these on, but like, for example, hospitality days, that should be taken from tourism levy if council agrees. The club ATV trails, that should be coming out of the tourism, because this is bringing people to the region. This is a marketing value. It should not be taken out of the grant money. I mean, even, I'll go as far as the Bathurst Heritage Trust Commission, because it brings a lot of people to that area to visit. They do a lot of site visits. I think this is something as well that we can look at and have it towards the tourism levy. That's what the tourism levy is for any activities. I know the curling club is having a provincial, first time in over 20 years, they're having a provincial curling club here in Bathurst. I met with them today. They're going to come and do a presentation, bringing all these people here to do this huge tournament, over 100 people, not counting their families. That's what that money is meant for. And I think that it would be a good idea that if we remove it from there, the grants should be kept for something like Systema, the Education Foundation, the bursaries. This is the way I look at it. Councillor Burnett?
You're very right on that. And the other thing is, though, that since I've been here, the Bathurst Heritage Trust has got 12,000, so it's been accepted over and over again. So I don't know why it's in the new, because you can't keep that building open without it. So we don't need a building that's closed with all the good stuff that's in there. And you're right, people from all over the world come to the Heritage Museum, and like the I should say the strangest, but the most different one I had is a call to meet a guy who came to the Bathurst Heritage Trust Commission to find out where the Vikings landed. And I said, the Vikings? Yeah, and he said, yeah, Vikings landed in Bathurst at one time. And he went through the Bathurst Heritage Trust, and he was from way down the States somewhere. So we do get a lot of people, a lot of tourists, a lot of people coming into the Heritage Trust.
We might be able to disperse
you.
it elsewhere. Deputy Mayor Anderson?
Thank you. Sonia, is this the same grant budget that we use where we get the requests from? Because we've gone from $30,000 in that budget up to what's 120 for this year?
I know total was 204, but some had already been allocated through the budget process.
Okay, but I mean, what
2023,
was
yes.
left in the actual for distribution for people to, outside of that was 120, if I'm not mistaken. So just these numbers alone were up to $170,000, just a little shy of 170. Like, that's a huge jump, and that doesn't include the schools coming for the milk fund, and for me, those are very important, not to take away from the ATV club, but I think like the little ones, the little associations that we support have to, be a priority in there as well. It's about feeding kids. Do you know what I mean?
And that's why I think, Deputy Mayor Anderson, these should be towards the tourism levy, not part of the grant.
Yeah, I
Those
don't think
requests
they
can
should be
come-
part of the grant distribution at all.
So what we will do at the end of the package, we have a section where we will discuss each of these.
Okay.
I suggest that when we get to that position, you can think about it in the meantime, is which one do you want to look at it further, and which one you don't want to look at it any further, if you want to say no already, or if you're considering saying yes, if you're considering it through the tourism fund, because we have $240,000 in the tourism fund right now as a budget, which one you would recommend for the tourism fund, and which one you would want to leave for the grants. We can do that exercise. Okay?
Yep, perfect.
All right. So there was also other requests. So the first one was for Groupe Action, the downtown revamp study. They had requested $60,000. We didn't include it in the grants because, first of all, staff needs to do additional analysis. And if it is recommended by staff after the analysis, it would be brought back to council and eligible for the tourism accommodation levy, because that one would be a whole revamp of the downtown. And it would not require any additional budget. Groupe Action also asked for trail paving and line painting at $60,000, and if it's approved, that one would increase the road surface budget and line marking budget in the transportation section. We did not write there because we are not recommending it for 2024. Instead, we're recommending it for 2023 if council wants to go with it. The DBRC presentation for their land at $50,000. If council wishes to grant that money, we recommend it be in 2023 instead of 2024, because when we did the budget, we had allocated money for land purchases, so that would be taken out of that.
And we'd be able to use it for 2023 instead of 24, which would be a perfect idea, because council did say that, you know, we were in agreement with it, and they would take advantage of it now because they have purchased the land.
Yes.
All
So
right.
my suggestion would be to bring it back at the next public council for discussion, and if they want to grant it at that point.
All right. Councillor Scary?
Just not that long ago, we had the presentation in regards to the Legion and what they, or the memorial for the new project Mr. Oliver was in. Does that fall into this budget as well, or was it? I know they didn't want any money, but wouldn't there not be some cost associated with that?
Mr. Pettigrew?
Thank you, Worship. I can advise that Mr. LaPlante and myself have met with that group. They're not ready at this point to present or request anything,
okay.
so we'll continue and update council when we're ready.
Okay.
Or when they're ready.
Thank you.
All right. Perfect. Okay.
We're good?
Yep, we're good.
Okay. Protective services. So that one includes the police protection, fire protection, emergency measures, and other protection. And for the police protection, the current budget is at $6.3 million. And the police services have been the responsibility of each local in the first year of the municipal reform. And as such, the Bathurst Police Department still renders services within the old Bathurst city limits, and the two other locals are still receiving police services from the RCMP. Based on 2023, the cost for the RCMP is $734,000 divided between both subunits. The Bathurst Police Force submitted a proposal to the province to provide services to Ward 2. Instead of the RCMP, it would be the Bathurst Police Force. This change in operation would mean material change in the budget, and the city is still working with the province to get the confirmation on the approval. So that is the second. So we had the Regional Service Commission. There was a material impact on the budget, but this change is the second material impact that we are waiting on to finalize numbers. Depending on the answer, it might change greatly, the numbers and the column as well.
We're hoping that we will get good news for 2024 within the Bathurst policing. If not, we're looking at almost $800,000 for RCMP next year, but the province is certainly working on it right now. I think it's all happening at the same time for everybody, so
Yes.
we'll cross our fingers. Until we have further information. We might have further information before we actually finalize our budget. Councillor Burnett.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. You and our CEO went to Fredericton last week for
Yeah.
meetings. Is there any further talk on amalgamating with other parts of the region, like when we first got the ward system and new people joining in? We were told that there possibly could be others joining as well. Is that going to happen? So that would determine how many RCP officers we need or police that we need for those areas. Are we looking at that down the road in the near future? Because it was mentioned that we probably have a couple other zones that will be joining the city maybe.
I'll give it to Mr. Pettigrew. I just want to make sure he provides.
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, part one of the reform was to look at municipal boundaries. That discussion hasn't happened yet. It wasn't a discussion on that. But I can say that for our police department, that is a project they look at any services that they offer in the future. If we expand it, that's part of their business case they have to provide to the province to expand it and determine what the level of servicing or level of personnel would be. So that's all part of a policing study to get the approval. So we would do that if we expanded the boundaries, but there was no discussion to date on expanding of boundaries yet with any provincial departments.
I think each region is trying to just finalize the reform and the boundaries that we've received now, and how can we bring it within our own policing before we even think of going outside the boundaries. Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome.
In the other sections, administrative fees have a budgeted increase of 147. This is due to the replacement of a leave of absence and regular salary increase. In crime control, the increase is also for regular salaries for 66,000. The increases and decreases where you have in your packages, because it's a little bit more split. is simply a reflection of the work distribution within crime control. Traffic activities is reflective of an optimal service delivery with regular salary increases. The total increase for 286. Training with new police officers, we had a rotation in the past few years. Updates in training is required, so the budget is shown from 80 to 107, so an increase of 27,000. Stations and building is set to remain the same. Increase in equipment for 88,000 is for an agreement for a full suite recording system. The current legacy system is no longer supported and would require significant investment. The new system would include body cams, dash cams, and interview recording, and currently the IT department spends many hours at the police station to repair the current system. This new system would improve required camera capabilities, reduce storage costs, as well as time from the IT department. And the initial agreement would be for 5 years. Any questions on police? I have him right there.
Councillor Willett? Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The upstairs is the police station. Are we advertising that for rent? Because we're losing an awful pile of rent there that for empty space that we're not using. So,
Mr. Pettigrew? Or do I go to Mr. Pettigrew?
Well,
or-
there'll be two.
Okay.
I think there's two components. We're actually doing an internal evaluation. I think for that question, one of them was, depending on the services and depending on how we operate, the police department is always in the section of looking to expand some areas. So there is a discussion of the way the building is set up on, can we partition a portion of that? Because we wouldn't be allowed to have general public within that area. So there is some look at some discussions on that. But we did have some interest. We still have it out there. We do have interest from some parties looking at that facility, but it's either really too big, or they want to divide it in half. So there might be an option for a division, but keep them separate because it was just one shared facility where we'll have to do some upgrades to divide it into two components that we could use and go out again. So there is the discussion on, depending on the personnel needs, but the interest we have for it have fallen through. We didn't get lots of interest, but never closed the deal, I guess, on some of the rental units. So
it's been empty for what, 2 years now? So,
it's been a couple of years, yeah, 2 or 3 years.
4.
4?
4?
I think 4.
Yeah. I think what it is that the interest parties wanted only a portion and not the whole floor. And then the cost of renovating for us to create that did not justify the value of the rent that we would be getting. We wouldn't get a return in investment for years to come. So we don't know if there's anything happening at the moment, no. Just that you're looking at it.
Yeah, I can add right now has not been interest in it from other parties, but we are still in discussions with the police department for expanding that area for their use.
Okay, perfect. Does that answer your question,
Yeah.
Councilor Witt? Okay. They won't.
Well, you cleared the police chief quite quick. That's because he's new. Fire protection, he's not as new, no. In fire protection, starting in 2023, the fire services for the local districts have been integrated with the City of Bathurst Fire Department. However, the budgets need to remain divided by locals for the time being. When the results of the fire study comes in, these services might transfer to shared services instead, since Bathurst City Department is getting involved more and more. The highest contributors to the increase of 235 in the bottom line in fire protection are for administration for 76 is the regular salary increases, a Fire Pro software, and the fire master plan that was starting in 2023, but there was also a cost recovery associated for a portion of that study. Firefighting force regular salary increase, as well as safety suit rotation as part. They always have to update their rotation of safety suits, so dry, ice, and bunker. The training and development for the San Ann Fire Station, there's an increase of 24,000. And station and building, the main station has the projected increase, so we rent fire station number 1 in Bathurst. So there is the increase of the CPI as per the agreement for 3,000. And the substations, the province used to provide a grant for recreational center attached to the St. Anne Fire Station and was budgeted in grants in 2023, but it's now transferred here for $35,000 since the city owns the building and the full amount is going for building repairs. And it's the same purpose as when it was before, it's just reassigned here. The balance of the changes are due to snow removal cost. For fighting equipment, we have the purchase of mobile radios and required licenses for $28,500 and equipment repairs and fuel for $16,000. Questions? Good.
No.
All right. Emergency measures includes the big amount, obviously, is the dispatch services. So we, the Bathurst Police Force, you're not done. Oh, you were not done completely yet. Oh, false hope. So we provide dispatch services to the BNPP and fire dispatch to Chaleur, Acadian, and the Restigouche region, as mentioned in the revenue section. And for this reason, you don't see the expense for dispatch services for the other two local districts because Bathurst Police Force is actually dispatching for their fire services. The cost for fire dispatch for them is included in their fire department. So the total cost for 2024 is $1.6 million, and the increase of 161 is for regular salary increase and miscellaneous goods and services for $13,000. Other protection, building inspections and bylaw enforcement only show a small variance because of regular salary increases and adjustments. As for animal and pest control, it will see the increase reflected in the contract with the SPCA for $6,759, and the contract for Ward 1 and 2 will be coming to issuance December 31st, 2024, and new tender will be going out for the full city of Bathurst for the year 2025 and onwards. Regular Public Safety Committee is the one that we showed earlier from the RSC, and the cost for that line was $6,648. Before we move on to transportation services, any questions for protection?
No, you're good.
All right. I'll still have my breather.
Take your drink.
I swear it's just coffee. What? Shameless plug, yes. I appreciate the chair provided by Mr. Foulan this tonight. I will just say that. So transportation services, we now shift where we have the common services, which are the shared engineering and public works building, the roads and streets, and traffic services are included in there as well. So for common services, they are all within the old city of Bathurst because we need to mention that the province is still maintaining the roads for Ward 2. So if you're wondering when we get to the capital part, if you're wondering for anything of the snow removal for Ward 2 and all of that, it is still taken care of by the province, so that's why it's not showing on here. The following for administration has $17,000 for regular salary increases. Training is set to remain the same, and it covers the training for full public works as well as the engineering team. Engineering services has increased of $6,000 for regular salaries, and equipment has budgeted increase of $102, after transfers, and it can be explained by the distribution in insurance, where more is allocated here. So we had a decrease in just the regular insurance on the other line earlier. More is distributed here instead for the equipment allocation. And the other increase is because of parts and vehicle repairs. Public buildings has a budgeted increase of $56,000 for electricity, fire insurance, salaries, and other small supplies and services. And finally, inventory has decreased mostly due to the distribution of employees, and the expense includes the purchase of an electric pallet jack and new shelving for the stock room. And this would enable to reduce stock costs in future budgets. So we're trying to decrease the sides options that would expense directly the supplies and keep the stock where it should, because we do have a stock room, and they would take it out as it goes, and it would actually help with the flow and managing to make sure that we have an inventory that is usable right away instead of having the size and going out. So we save on time, we maximize our stock room as well, so that would enable that. Roads and streets. More details for roadway services on the next slide, but for now, we will mention that the budget increases from 768 in 2024 to 753 in 2023. Storm sewers had an additional employee distribution for work to be accomplished for 33,000. Snow and ice removal budget remains at 1.1 million. And street lighting has an increase of 33,000 simply for the increase in electricity costs and supplies. This is one that is taken care of by the city for wards 1 and 2. Now, roads and streets.
Councillor Willett?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is where I disagree. So, road services, definitely we need more money spent there. Everybody knows we're driving on ruts all over the place. We got our city employees, which are doing a perfect job in doing repairs and that. They just need more funds, more money to do more streets, more service. So I think we need to increase this. I mean, the citizens of Bathurst need a little bit more when it comes to road services and street repairs. So I don't know how this can be tuned up a little bit more, but it's ridiculous that we're going $14,000 more than last year. We need a lot more than that, you know, I mean, a lot more than that, so to keep on repairing the roads.
So I'll go to Mr. Abernathy. I'm putting you on the spot here. So we all know we still have to balance this budget, so let's but we could throw it out there. Ideally, I know that other streets we've been wanting to do, and we've had citizens requests on certain streets that we would wanted to do. So let me ask you, if we had an opportunity and we were still able to balance the budget with the staff that you have, how much more work do you think you'd be able to get done, and how much would that cost? Or could you come back at another date? I know I'm putting you on the spot on this question.
Oh, for sure, and I have no problem answering. So essentially, what we looked at this year was we did experience some staff shortages this year. And therefore, there was some additional money allocated last year. We brought the asphalt budget up to about 88,000. There was a request in the efficiency committee to allocate extra money again this year, which is certainly appreciated. But when the initial round of budgets came through, with most expenses being fixed throughout the city, that was something that we looked at. That was an additional ask that we figured, well, you know, normally public works budget is kind of the one that suffers when we do those cutbacks. So certainly something that we pulled back on. Now, to answer your question, can we do additional work with the manpower that we have? Assuming that we have a little bit more of a smoother, I guess you'd say, year with manpower, we'd be looking at hopefully exhausting most of that $88,000 asphalt budget in regular patching. And where extra money would be allocated would certainly be on street repairs, like was done recently on Couture Street. So Couture Street, we're looking at probably a $45,000 to $50,000 fix there. So that got us about 150 meters of new street there. So, you know, obviously very badly needed. It was in terrible shape. So any money allocated extra in this budget would directly go to spot repairs like that, 100 meters sections, because at the end of the day, we already have 2 patch crews allocated for the entire year. We don't have the equipment to patch with more than 2 patch crews. Right now, we're patching out of a hot box for 1 crew, and we're out patching out of a 1-ton for another crew. So 2 patch crews is all we can do. If those 2 patch crews run all summer, we'll probably exhaust most of that 88,000. So barring any, you know, major blowups or whatnot. So any extra money allocated would go towards a spot repair like we've done in Couture Street, and that's something that we can get done in, you know, a couple of weeks at the end of the year, pretty much.
So 88,000 is not a lot of money.
Pardon me?
88,000 is not a lot of money.
No.
As for patching, it's significant. I mean, like I said, we were only able to put down, I think, 35 or 40,000 this year. But again, we suffered with the resources there quite a bit on the manpower side of things. So having a full complement next year, which I believe the budget does request a full complement, I think we would be able to put down most of that, and then, you know, maybe be able to do a small section somewhere throughout the city with, if there's 5, 10, 15,000 left at the end of the year, get a small section done. If any other funds were allocated, it would certainly be for that type of work. It would not be more patching.
It wouldn't be more patching,
we're
it would be
maxed out
for
on
more
patching.
work.
Yeah.
All right.
And that's what I'm looking for, and I'm sure that that's what the citizens are looking for, to get more jobs done like our city staff did on Couture Street, on the other streets that were done in town, so.
So let me go back to you, Mr. Abernathy. So if we were able to put some funds in those departments exactly to do more like Couture Street, ideally in order to get the work done in the summer. So you said about what, 45, 50,000 for Couture?
Yeah, so like I got some slides there that kind of determine exactly how much per 100 meters or whatnot. But yeah, 40,000 would get you about 100 meters. If things go really well, we might be able to get 150 out of 50,000 or so. Yeah.
Okay, so this is something we certainly can consider. So I have Councillor Knowles.
Okay.
Councillor Knowles?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I think, I know you don't want a repeat of 2023, like we had to reallocate a lot of our crews, so a lot of days we didn't get patching done. They were allocated, put out a fire somewhere else. I don't think we want to see that next year if we can avoid that. We need as much done as possible.
I agree. Deputy Mayor Anderson?
I'm putting you on the spot again, but I think it's an easier question. If your ideal scenario, with the manpower you have and the equipment you have, how much would you increase that budget by?
Probably 50,000.
That's it?
Yeah, between 50 to 60. That would give us one of those extra jobs at the end of the year, like we did in Couture. I'm banking even with the 88,000 that we're going to have 10 or 15,000 there to do a shorter section, maybe a 50-meter really bad section somewhere. Putting that 50 or 60 in there gives us an extra. Like we just finished Couture Street like a week and a half ago, right? And it snowed out today. So next year we could get snow in the middle of October, and that money's sitting there. So. To me, if the patching goes straight all summer, we're going to have pretty significant improvement in our streets as a whole. So it's those really bad sections that are maybe 50 or 100 meters here and there that we would actually do a pulverize and pave. 50 or 60,000 gives us, we could do 2 shorter sections, or we could do 1 big one. But having more than 2, 3, 4 weeks worth of work, that's starting to pinch me again there, like
Right.
on the tail end of the summer. So.
And when we're looking at an area like Melanson subdivision, for example, that's a complete rebuild, eh?
Yeah, it's you get storm system and everything that needs
That's
to be
what I
redone
thought,
there as
yeah.
well. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about is pulverized. We may
Yeah.
dig up the odd service here
Right.
and there that's giving us trouble, but it's mostly just pulverized and paved. Like getting into curbs and stuff is pretty major. Not saying we can't do it, but that's a much longer time span to get a job like that
Okay.
done. So resources would be needed to be allocated for that.
Okay, that's what I thought.
All right. So, can we, Madame Gauvin, for the budget, are you able to increase it by another 50,000? And we'll see if we can balance the budget, but the requests?
I certainly took the note of it.
Okay,
We're
perfect.
under red right now but we're missing material information for the RCMP and the Regional Service Commission. So obviously, before knowing that information, we are no close, because remember, we don't have any money for discretionary grants right now either.
No,
So we have to take that into mind, so.
okay. Take
But I
it as
took
a
the
note,
notes. I
and then
did.
we'll see.
I promise
All
I
right.
did.
Okay.
Trust me, if I can give 50
Okay.
grand to Matt, I will.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Anderson?
Did you say we're in the red right now?
Yeah,
Yes, we are.
That's what I thought I heard.
yeah.
Shit.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
You don't cheat and. So you don't forward in the pages, you don't read the end of the book before. Right, all right, so we'll get back to that. But Matt pretty much said what I was going to say about this slide. So this is an example of his work plan. So we have a lot of interest in the road services. Obviously, it's something that all citizens feel when they drive. So he has his additional patching crew going from, I think, May to October. And when the season starts, they evaluate the conditions of all the streets and they make their work plan for this summer. So this is the example of 2023's work plan. So all the streets are identified as a priority, and then they get done during the year. So obviously that work will still get done in 2024 as a work plan and see which streets needs to be put in.
Councillor Legacy?
Sorry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just noticing that our last budget meeting, we talked about St. Anne and Schiller, but I'm not seeing them on this.
That is capital budget.
Yeah.
This is maintenance.
Right.
So, yes,
That
there
makes
is, we show the 767, but there is also the full capital transportation amount that Mr. Abernathy did a good job to updating you. He has a special set of slides for you guys tonight.
Okay.
He gave you surprises. Can't pull out all my wheelhouse at once. I mean, I gotta keep you awake. So, traffic services. That is also part of the transportation. So the increase is for 38,000, and the most significant increase is for external services within the lane marking that is outsourced. So we predict an increase of 20,000 for that one. Off-street parking, we have a parking meter attendant that we use as an outside firm for these services. So the fees would go up from 109, or from 81 to 109 in 2023. We did not budget a full year because the parking lots were just getting back to being reused with the federal government and everything. So we had not budgeted a full year for last year. So this is the full year of the off-street parking cost. And there is also a slight increase in maintaining the parking. Public transportation, so that is the line for the regional transportation for the bus system. It's the same as budgeted in the Regional Service Commission's budget. So that is one that we don't know if it will change or not. We're awaiting answers, but for now that's the number that we have, so that's the number that we put in. Environmental health services, that's solid waste collection and disposal. So this is charged by tonnage. So the tipping fees for the year 2024 will be $72 per ton versus $70,000 per ton, 2023, and the expense is distributed in each local according to estimated tonnage. For collection services, there is an increase of $139,000 for refuse services. The contract from the province for garbage collection is ending on in January 2024 for Ward 2. And based on the information collected by staff, there will be a significant increase in price to the refuse collection. For environmental development services, they are listed over 2 slides. So in 2023, there was an agreement concluded with the planning services with the Regional Service Commission, and this was to enable the change within the municipal reform and not have a gap in services. This agreement ends in December 2023, and a new planner will be hired for the city into this budget. This, because planning services will now be fully offered by the city of Bathurst and not as an outside contract just for Ward 2, the fees are now shared. The net increase between the Regional Service Commission and administration fees is for 110, so for the net between the two. Other than the change in contract for the urban planner services, the other changes are for additional professional services, as well as aerial pictures taken from Service New Brunswick. When they take aerial pictures, if we are willing to pay 50% of the cost, they will share those pictures with us. So we use them in the planning department. Community development is another section presented in the Regional Service Commission's budget. Rental has a decreased budget of $36,000 in cost for the waterfront and the second floor at the police station building. And there is a decrease in salaries that are being simply reallocated. So normally we budget for in the buildings maintenance, but really should have gone to the recreational waterfront expense. So that's a reallocation. The rest is due to decrease in snow removal services, janitorial services, and a few small items. So obviously with the second floor building being vacant at the police station, there is also a decrease in cost. Economic Development Administration has an increase of $95,000 for regular salary increases, a new economic development officer, and professional services. This is a shared cost to the same level as all other administrative expenses. The contribution to the Regional Service Commission for their economic development mandate is budgeted closely the same. Grants for development initiatives have been decreased by $92,500 because the ones that used to be given through the old tax rebate program within the planning department are finished, and the new grants currently ongoing shows an expected amount for 2024 of 83,500.
You're not on the right slide, Madame Goulet.
I'm not, oh,
No, you weren't on the
sorry.
right slide.
Thank you, those,
Yeah.
I just said that. Part 2,
There.
sorry. The button is very finicky.
Oh, we have a question, Councilman Knowles.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Collection of waste
Yes.
at 139,000, so what you're saying, telling us now, in 2024, we're responsible for
If you can go
the
back at
new
the old
Bath-
slide.
The new
Yeah.
Bathurst, the new
Yeah.
Ward 1 and Ward 2?
So we were already responsible to pay the invoice. We would just receive the invoice from the province of New Brunswick because
Okay.
the tender was with them.
Okay.
But in 2024, their contract is ending, so we're responsible to negotiate the tender and pay the bills directly instead of going through them.
Okay, just wanted to clarify that, yeah.
Yeah, so we do pay the bill for the garbage. Okay. Good.
So tourism, that was the slide I wanted to. Promotion,
Oh,
investment.
hold on, we're lit
Sorry.
up a little bit everywhere. Conseiller Leblanc.
Merci. C'était pour justement pour celle-ci que tu es dessus.
Ok.
T'es sur la bonne, là?
Je suis à la bonne.
T'es sur la bonne, là, Sonia? Je voudrais clarifier quelque chose, une erreur que j'avais faite, on va dire, à la dernière réunion, justement à propos de ce 65 000 pour le tourisme, comparativement aux 47 000 de l'année dernière. Le chiffre à côté qui était le retour, nous autres, si tu veux, de cet argent-là, qui était 0 la dernière fois. Merci. À votre demande. J'ai été me faire expliquer exactement le budget. Et puis, ce qu'on m'a expliqué qui était très clair et très compréhensible, c'est que maintenant, l'argent qu'on donne, si vous voulez, à CSR, ça se va dans un budget pour la promotion du tourisme régional. Et non uniquement pour Bathurst. Pour les gens qui ne le savent pas, c'est la raison pour laquelle ça disait que Bathurst avait un retour de 0 $ sur le 65 000 qu'on investissait. Mais réellement, tout ce qui est bon pour la région Chaleur, tout ce qu'on met dedans, c'est excellent pour tout le monde de la région. Fait que je voulais juste clarifier que j'avais tort dans ma compréhension et d'avoir été participé à la réunion m'a grandement aidé. Et le 65 000, il est très bien investi.
C'est vrai. Merci.
Donc, oui, la CSR, le 65 000, c'est le même montant qui a été montré au début dans la distribution des coûts. The 240,000 that is there is the equivalent of the tax levy. So for the tourism tax levy collected from the hotel, so there is 240,000 in levy in the revenues. There's also the associated expense. There's a little 350 there, but that's a cost recovery for when the recreation and team goes on outside event and they have a cost recovery for that. So that's the 350 that's there. So because the revenues increased 40,000, the expenses are 40,000 as well.
Councillor Willett has a question.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Coming back to the garbage collection, we're going to be paying the bill directly for the garbage. Are we looking at taking over, doing the garbage run in the outskirts?
Mr.
Or is that contract ran out, or what's going on there?
Thank you. Yeah, there's a combination of some efforts that are happening now. There's a circular materials recycling program ongoing, but I'll allow Mr. Abernathy to look at it. Definitely for us at this point is equipment, would be an equipment issue based on the timelines, but I'll let him explain that.
Mr. Abernathy?
Thank you, Your Worship. We're actively looking at putting together a proposal for taking over the refuse collection for those outside areas. Like I said, the circular, Mr. Pettigrew mentioned, the circular materials contract is looking at starting in the tail end of 2024. That would either take more resources from us or free up some. We haven't decided yet which way we're going on that. We're very close to making a decision on that. But what the outlook for us, since things are so unclear, we're going to go with 1-year contracts versus 3 years. So we're going to be contracting for 2024, finishing in January of 2025 with options to renew, as opposed to automatic 3-year contract with options to move further. At the very worst, we're locked in for 1 year with these contracts, looking at reevaluating after 1 year. Strong possibility that we will be taking over after the year. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Beautification and rehabilitation of land is a nice word for demolitions. So that's the associated cost. In revenues, you have the matching revenue since we get cost recovery. Recreational and cultural services. That one right here, when you look at the administrative fees, they have a decrease of 17,000 because last year we had budgeted the full amount for the recreational master plan. So it started now, it's just the ending of that plan, so obviously it creates saving on that end. The swimming pool commission requested 470,000, totaling, well, they requested 480,000 compared to 395 in 2023, but they received 345. In this first draft, we included 470 since this is the budget that's being circulated at the Regional Service Commission. In order for the city to receive the full amount of 104 that's put into the revenue side, that's the amount we would have to grant. However, council has the option to decrease the amount should they wish to. It would simply decrease the amount received through the shared infrastructure accordingly. We'll have a more detailed section on that part at the end, but that one needs to be looked at in more detail, so I have a special spot for that one. The Civic Center has a decreased budget from 2.3 million to 2.1 million. That's a 147 decrease. The biggest impact is for combining two positions into one, not replacing a vacancy position because we found efficiencies in a spot. That's creating an efficiency of 92,000, and there are additional savings for casual working in concessions, bar, and maintenance for 104. Many of these salary savings come from the basketball events budgeted in 2023, but not for 2024, as reflected when we talked about it in revenues. At the opposite end, there is additional budget for fuel, equipment, and food supplies. Parks Maintenance has a reallocation of staff from Casey Irving Center, but savings in supplies, creating an increase in budget of 20,000. The same goes for Daily Point. This brings the total park maintenance budget to 522. Daily Point and Yahoo Canteen is at 131,000, Waterfront at 153,000, and the Pavilion Gym at 111,000, and they have slight changes, simply supplies and readjustments. Cultural, the library includes the request budget from the committee. So we have, when we look at all the distribution or the request at the end, you'll see the specifications again as a reminder. But the total of their request was for about 22,000. And then as a city, because they are in our building, we're responsible for their electricity and all of that. So that's the additional amount on there. The old post office has an increase of 4,725. That's just electricity and utilities. That's creating that. That's separate from the grant that they received for 20,000. Other recreational and cultural services, you can see the expense line at 14,000. That's the one from our share to pay for administrative services for the Regional Services Commission for the recreational installation, plus the amount that covers the soccer synthetic turf and the Sportplex in Belle-Bay. So I think, if I remember correctly, it's 5,000 something. Summer program has close to the same budget amount for 31,000 and winter program for 32,000. Fiscal services, last section. As you can see, debt charge have a decrease of 129,000. You have to look at it by sub-units, however, for the principal on the debenture payments, which is the yearly payment for the city's long-term borrowing. For the sub-unit identified as Big River and other local districts, that is not North Tedigush, that other side. The province had made purchases before the municipal reform for the fire department. So this creates an increase of 140,000 in their column for the year, for the total of 143,000. For the old Bathurst City, the debt cost reduced by 312,000. This is a direct result of capital reinvestment strategy, and as capital purchases are getting repaid, the city adds less new borrowing, and the more the balances come to issuance, and your debt charges are reduced. The total decrease over the past 3 years is $620,000. Combined, they make the decrease of 172 within the 2.2 million payment on debentures. The interest on short-term borrowing and banking service charge for $50,000 combined is reflective of the capital budget presented on October 11th. So we had $620 savings in the debt repayment in the last 3 years. You can see that now, in order, we are paying for cash, so that requires a transfer to the general capital fund. So for column for the old Bathurst, the amount is 733, which 620 comes from savings from the past 3 years, which enables us to buy cash. And we had mentioned during the capital presentation that we were willing to go over a little bit to recommend that because it would create other savings throughout the budget or prevent additional expenses throughout the budget. The $25,000 that's there for Bathurst Big River is the snowmobile for the fire department. And earlier in the presentation, we had said that some locals had had profit or surpluses in 2022. This one had a deficit. It's $5,562 for 2022, which is 2 years later integrated into the budget. This slide has no change. The sick leave and retirement benefit covers the legal requirement in accounting standards for post-retirement benefit payments, as well as a contingency for bad debt.
So we have a question from Councillor Burnett.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. The snowmobile question, would that be able to come out of the tourism levy rather than from the city budget? Because we're the snowmobile capital of Atlantic Canada, and we do receive snowmobilers here from all over. And I'm just wondering if that purchase could be through
That would be more for rescue.
For rescue?
The purchase,
Yeah.
the reason behind purchasing the snowmobile is that if there's an accident up in the trails and they have to go and get people, that's the whole the reason for the snowmobile.
Yeah, I understand the reason for it, and we should have maybe two, but anyway, but paying for it, could we pay for it with tourism levy? No?
It's
That
very,
one-
yeah.
That one we have to be careful because we are then charging the province for the services rendered to the other locals all around. So portion of that snowmobile is covered through them. So they've always had about 30,000 capital paid cash. So it's
Okay.
part of the distribution of the cost that's related to them.
Okay, thank you.
But we can put Mr. Boucher on the spot if we want to.
I'll be good.
All right, so results for each local. Went through all the revenues, went through all the expenses. The results. So the revenues sit at $33,817,000 and expenses at $34,132,000. So the expenses are divided for each local, obviously. The shared services are paid through the distribution through their tax base amongst all of them. So obviously, amongst all of them, they should have surpluses prorated equivalent to the shared services, which right now they do not. So we're missing $315,000. Considerations for council include, the first one obviously is the missing information for the RCMP. Depending on where that goes, the city did submit a plan, but until we get a final answer, which is very close to getting, it will be difficult to finish the analysis because that could be material in our budget. Then the additional RSSF funding that was just received last week through the Regional Service Commission could change things. And there is, the current proposed budget has many discussions items that are still pending. So for transportation, shared recreational installations, the new formula, and the RSSF distribution of the initial funding. So those two things alone could completely shift from a negative to a positive. So when we're talking about the 50,000, it was in the additional draft that we put the budget, but obviously when we saw the negative, we had to find the first spots to cut. There are other spots where, sure, we could have made a few more things, but we need to balance the budget first. So this is the first draft.
So
but
Madame
obviously
Gauvin,
the
question
answer
for
changes.
you. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
Okay, so with the police department, if, let's say we are able to move forward with the RCMP and they give us the go-ahead, whether it be in January or even if it was in April, because government goes fiscally as well. They do April to March. How much savings would we have once we become, because there's still a cost for us to be policing this. So it's not like we're saving almost $800,000. What would be our savings in, if we do get the go-ed and we can do our own policing?
Around 400,000.
Around 400,000. So we would automatically be in a surplus.
If it's January.
If it's January.
Yes, there are many variants to cover for any options. It depends. It can be the start date. It can be level of services. It can be, they can mandate to have anything in that plan when we get that answer. But if it's January with the current level of service, it would be 400,000 year one.
Okay. All right. Do we have any questions so far? Okay. Oh, Councillor Knowles?
Maybe this is a question for the chief of police. How many man hours or would be allocated with the expansion of Bathurst, like Big River and North Tedigus now, compared to now? Just a guesstimate, or?
Well, we have evaluated there would be 4 extra resources to police that area. So for 4 times 40 hours a week,
Okay,
which would be the minimum that we need,
okay,
our appropriate level of resources.
okay. That would be sufficient coverage in your opinion?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Hold on, Chief, don't go very far. Deputy Mayor Anderson, not sure.
I'm assuming we're going to need additional vehicles then too if we increase the manpower.
Yes, but that's all been considered in our numbers as well. So it's
Because,
one
like-
extra vehicle that we'll need to cover for the resources.
So we need one extra vehicle.
One
Because like
extra
I know
vehicle.
in the current budget, in the capital budget, there was a request for 2 vehicles.
One marked and one unmarked. I
Yeah.
believe, right?
Yes. So in the current budget, it is for the current Bathurst Police Force.
Right.
Right now, the full, I'll round it to 750 in the RCMP costs. Any amount for the additional police car, which would be 70,000 for one police car.
Right.
And the transition of the current level of service for 2024, the money would be taken from that same RCMP amount. So it would still be the decrease, including one vehicle and the additional police officers.
And do we have a ballpark of what that total cost is yearly?
For
Is it 400 grand
for the
that?
police?
For the 4 police and a car, it's got to be more than that.
About 450, I'll
Okay.
round it up, plus
Okay.
one police car every 3 years to
Yeah.
rotate. But it's still way cheaper than the 750, and
Yeah.
that's a 2023 amount.
Yeah,
It
exactly.
doesn't consider a potential increase that we might get, which we are still, haven't received the numbers yet.
And we're how far away from being able to proceed with that option?
Mr. Pettigrew?
Thank you, Worship. We met last week with the Minister of Local Government, Environment, Local Government, and Deputy Minister. So they're going to have some discussions with the Departments of Public Safety. We expect to hopefully have an answer pretty quickly. It's just a matter of a process and timing for a budget process, but hopefully I was hoping to have an answer for tonight, but hopefully we'll have something pretty quick.
But we're not locked into the RCMP. Like if we decide, well, we can't afford that.
No, we're
bill,
locked in.
We have to
Yes,
remain
we
with
have to
them?
pay that in 2024. We're locked in.
No, but I mean, going forward, like,
No.
is this an ongoing thing that we're gonna be continuously locked in with them? Or are we gonna be able to say, no, keep your RCMP, we're gonna buy a car and hire police officers?
Well, what happens is when it comes to the department, municipality has to make a request to the province to provide and take over policing service.
Okay.
So we can't just say we're taking it over, we have to submit, and the chief and his team have done a whole bunch of work. Provided the business case, did the needs analysis, and did a whole bunch of stuff. Policing with regards to what services they provide, number of staffing services. So that's all evaluated in the proposal. You put a proposal in to take over the area. So that's part of that proposal of, they've reviewed that, provided comments to the department and working on it. Now there's the discussion at some point of when the start date would be, if the minister signs off on the recommendation. So it's a matter of, we just can't take it over. We need to get the province and Public Safety, Department of Justice and Public Safety to accept our offer to take over the services. And they could have conditions, which they could be there's a transition, and they could say for the transition, it's currently offered and you're allowed to operate it with your current staffing till a certain date, or you need to hire within a couple of weeks. So there's all conditions that they put in.
But is that based on contracts that they have signed with the RCMP, that the province has signed
That's
with the
provincial, yeah, but they all expire at the end of March.
Because it's just not right that our citizens are on the hook for a bill that could be half of the cost if we did it in-house. It's not like we have, you know, a little building with 2 police officers that go driving around every now and then. It's a fully functioning police department. So for them to basically tie us to the wall and say you're bound to this and they're not going to contribute to it financially is just wrong.
Yeah, I think that's where the policing services and level of services is legislated. That's why we're going through the process. We've done it in enough time. It's just a matter of them getting back to us a little bit quicker than we needed for our budget process.
The police department did the proposal. All the work has been sent months ago. That's all been done. You know, I actually was part of the interview as well, and we're all set to go. It's just, it's in their hands, but there are other municipalities that are in the same boat as we are that have their own policing with the reform that are working this subject right now, and some of them are waiting like we are waiting. We're all waiting to see, and they know we're at the end of our year, and that's why we were there last week. We're trying to put a little bit of pressure to say, hey, you know, we need to finalize our budget by November 25th. Can we find out? Because that's a big ticket. So we were hoping to get back to us this week. Maybe by next week we'll hear something.
But like I said, it's just not right that they're not going to contribute anything to a bill that size.
Oh, absolutely.
Any other lights? No?
All right.
Okay. So to make a rehash of the request, so what I suggest is having a forum, like we said earlier, to discuss which you are willing to look at, or which one you are willing or not willing, the ones that you want to take off the table, if there's any, and if there's tourism versus non-tourism. So the library was $22,287. It included maintenance and repairs, computer software, activity chairs, playmats, trapezoids, desk, cricket maker.
I'll go to council, but you know, the library, we've bypassed them year over year over year. It took them 5 years to get flooring. And I mean, these employees are working and they're not working with proper equipment. To me, if we can, some way, somehow, I'm not sure I don't think we could, because this is for repairs and software, so we can't go under
Repairs
the
and
tourism.
software, you couldn't, it would be a little extra, but it's not that much.
Yeah, it's not that much. So if we could leave it there, but again, we need to balance the budget. Conseiller Leblanc?
Merci, Madame la mairesse. Oui, moi, ça, on en a parlé tout à l'heure, là, de ça ici, là. Puis moi, je suis tout à fait d'accord avec toi. Je pense que c'était conseiller Brunet aussi qui l'a mentionné. En tout cas, ceux qui l'avaient mentionné, Heritage Trust, pour moi, Hospitality Days et le club VTT, ça, c'en est trop, pour moi, de toute évidence, qu'on devrait regarder avec l'argent du Lavi, qui ne devrait pas être dans le budget accordé pour cette année. J'ai hâte d'attendre mes collègues et leur point de vue, mais pour moi, ça, c'est à 70 000 facile ou proche à enlever de.
Oui.
De
Puis en faisant ça, on ne dit pas qu'on va leur donner ces fonds-là en 2024. En 2024, ils vont venir faire la demande.
Oui.
Fait, mais on dit juste que d'après les demandes qu'on a eues, on les enlève de là, puis on les place là, puis ils feront la demande de nouveau en 2024.
C'est ça.
Pour ça.
C'est ça.
Oui. Moi, je suis complètement d'accord aussi, là. Does any other councillors agree with that? That those three can be removed, put towards the tourism, and they can come in. I mean, with the heritage, you never know. We might even be able to give the heritage a little bit more too, right? So it is part of the tourism. You're agreeing? OK. Ces trois parties-là, on les enlève, on va les mettre sur les leviers de 2024.
OK, ça, je l'ai déjà pris en note.
OK.
Le library, Bathurst, hospitalities, Victoria. Victoria Park enhancement, 5,000. That's the same as last year. That's a leave. Then I will just get the discretionary grants. North Tetegush, are you still okay that they received? That's the same grant they've been receiving from the province.
I think it's important. I don't know if some of you, quite a few of us have gone to go see the North Tetegush Recreational Center. It's unbelievable. And the volunteer committee, all the work and all the funding and the programs that they're applying for, It's absolutely beautiful. That skating rink in the park, it's all funded. It's all programs that they've applied for. And I believe, and another thing too is when I did speak to the president, he did tell me that they do have a loan on the building, that they still owe $50,000. So they're paying $1,000 a month towards the loan. So they really need that money.
So really, the last item is the discretionary grants. Let's say that we are able to get into a positive after we get more information. Typically, for the old city Bathurst, it was $204,000. If we take what's already distributed, the balance would be $156 minus the small ones we just talked about right now. Is this the same envelope that you would like for 2024 for discretionary grants?
Okay. So Councillor Knowles is lit up, so I'll go to Councillor Knowles first. If you have any feedback
Okay,
on what
thank you,
would like
Madam
to
Mayor. No, I just want to comment on the North Teddigosh Rec Center. They have a well-functioning committee up there. I went up there and looked at their building. They're doing a great job up there. So that's one I would certainly support. They're part of Bathurst now. They're doing a great job. Just wanted to make that comment.
Okay. So, Madame Gauvin, with the grant, because I know we have Systema, how much did it come up to exactly?
44. Can you flip the grants?
45?
Are you quicker to flip?
If we minus the other ones, I didn't write.
I'm sorry. It's
Yeah.
going to steal. But
Sorry.
it's going to flip quicker this way instead of making everybody dizzy here.
77,000?
No, the 77,000 was a total of the requests.
Okay.
But the amount that's already been granted through Sistema, O Post Office, VHS, ESN, and the medical scholarship was 47,400.
47, okay.
Thank you.
All right. Councillor Willett?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, definitely North Teddigosh needs the money that they're using. They're doing a real good job, and it's very well organized. The other thing too is they're also building another piece in the back going down to the river, which will probably fall into the tourism aspect of it. So they can probably come back and look at it for that part, for that aspect. And as far as the rest of the grants, I think that they should stay the way they are for this year.
So that would be the amount, because so we have 47,400, and what if we round it up to 100,000, so that would leave 52,600 for 2024.
So technically what I'm asking is, what would you like as a full envelope? There's 44,000 that's already granted, and that's the balance that you see there, but the full envelope at the end of the day for 1 year, do you still want 204, lower, higher, if we can balance the budget?
I don't think it needs to be higher. I don't think, I'm actually thinking, we're lit up. Deputy Mayor Anderson?
Like for our grants committee that we have now, that takes the requests, we operated on 120 this past year. For many, many years, we operated on $30,000. We increased it 1 year to 60,000, and then it went up to 120 last year. I don't see a need for it to go above that. And quite honestly, Heritage Trust Commission always felt within that particular grant committee. They always send in their request with what they have going on, and we've always accommodated them. And like I said, like Sistema would fall under that, the Medical Association. For a while, we had Jidlaka D in there. We had the Hospital Foundation in there for a while. That was all coming from the same pile. Last year, like I said, 120, I don't see a need to go above the 120.
Councillor Willett?
Thank you, I agree.
Yeah.
The 120 would be sufficient to run the grants committee.
I agree. Conseiller Leblanc?
C'était juste pour répéter la même chose.
Ouais. Okay.
All right, so
120.
we will give the 40, something I just said.
47,400?
And we will add 120, and that will make the full envelope, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, we minus the 4740 from the 120.
Oh,
120 total.
Is it 120 total?
120
Okay.
total, so you're going to minus the 47.4 from the 120. We're trying to save money so we can give them
That's what I was about
50,000
to
for
say. Well, there
roads.
you go. We just paid for patching. Okay, so Chris is good. He's already writing that down.
Okay.
So we will adjust accordingly. Thank you very
And
much.
if it's really, really tight, you go as low as 100, if it's really tight.
Okay, we'll see
Because
where
it
the
still
answers come
gives us
from.
52,800 at the 100,000 mark.
Yeah,
So if you need it, take it.
okay. Shall do. We're putting these here just as a reminder that these are not considered in the grants because they really fall out of it. So the trails, paving, and line painting is just, do you want Matt to consider that in his work in 2024 or not consider it at all?
Okay. I would like Mr. Abernathy's point of view on this because, you know, trying to revamp the downtown and being able to grow, we're talking about development, we have possibility of the downtown. But again, we're trying to balance a budget, which is very difficult. But if we don't try to figure something out, we will never grow, we're never going to develop, we're never going to move forward. And you have a committee that is working and that purchase land to have development, and it's, so I do want Mr. Abernathy's point of view, because you can't budget the 50, can you even budget that in? Because it's not part of your budget, right? Yeah.
No, thank you. So the trails paving, line painting, I mean, that all falls into the active transportation kind of thing as well. It's part of the downtown development and whatnot. But with the downtown revamp study, I feel is going to take that into account as well. So if we're putting the cart ahead of the horse here, like we should probably come up with a definite plan for the downtown and where we want to go with it, and then maybe go ahead with the paving and whatnot and apply for some funding through that active transportation plan and whatnot. To me, that would be a little bit more of a reasonable.
So it would be concentrate on the study first before going to anything else, because
The money's not allocated right now. We
No.
don't have any funding applied for it either. So, if we can take that money and go get, more money through RDC and whatnot for active transportation, that's probably the best plan to get the best bang for our buck. That's my opinion on it, I guess.
Okay. All right.
Okay, all right. And for the revamp, as we mentioned, well, that one, staff is looking at it to analyze it, and it would be brought back, and the funds could be taken out of the tourism, 240 if approved. So that one would not create an additional expense in that net. So that one is kind of nulled. Not
Okay.
nulled in not doing, but nulled in the impact.
Okay.
So we talked about the aquatic center. So I did a little run over to have a better view of what it entails. In 2023 budget, the grant in the budget was $395. It was above the Regional Service Commission's eligible expense for $306. We received from our neighboring municipalities $38,480 for a net budget impact of $356,520. What happened in actuality, the pool was granted $345, received $38,000, so the net impact was $306 in the actual 2023 as of today. In 2024, if we're looking at the Regional Service Commission's budget, it would have a grant of $470. We would receive from the Regional Commission's $104, that's 22% cost recovery. The net budget impact would be $365. Any operating deficit, when they have one, is fully absorbed by the City of Bathurst, as it is not an eligible shareable expense in the formula. So really the question I'm asking is, do we leave the $470 right now in this draft budget? Or do you want to decrease the amount, but it would also decrease the contribution from our neighbors? And if there's a deficit incurred, then it would fully fall on the City of Bathurst.
Yep. I'll go to Deputy Mayor Anderson and then.
It's a bone of contention, that $50,000 for me, versus 2023 versus 2024, or 2022, actually, because I know, like, we had allocated and approved the $395. and 2 weeks before the end of the year 2022, we gave them $50,000, but it was coming out of their, the premise was it was coming out of the 395 that they were allocated for 2023. So in my brain, and I know your books maybe say different, but in my brain, we gave them $395,000.
Oh, yes, because the 2022 is in there, absolutely.
Okay, okay.
Yes, I agree.
For me, if with an assurance of the 104 from the regional service, with that assurance, I would be okay to proceed with the 365. Like our allotment being, I would be not happy about it, but okay with it. But that would mean an assurance. And like, and this is one of those areas again that is kind of up in the air because we don't know what's going to take place during the budget, during the voting process with the regional service. I mean, that could all be out the window. I'm not comfortable if at the end of the day, I'm not comfortable with 470 coming out of our pocket.
If it reverts to the old formula, you mean?
If, yeah, well. I
Because
suppose
this one is the new proposed formula from the committee,
That's
so-
the new proposal. So
Yes.
if, let's say hypothetically, Sonia, that the new formula doesn't get approved, we're based on the old formula, we're still at 87%, so what's that calculation? So we're,
It was around $50,000 less.
around 50,000 less, we're looking at 420. Go to somebody else, I have to think.
All right, Councillor Willett?
And it just as to reassure council, I'm not looking for definite answers. I'm just
Yeah,
looking for
we're not
feedback
voting
so that
tonight.
when the news comes in, that I know what to work with. About when it's
Again,
definite.
you know, we have a new manager at the Aquatic Center. He's doing a wonderful job. Certainly finding ways. They're still open. They're still operational. They're probably running on the line of credit, which what's going to happen is if they finish the year on that line of credit, we're stuck with that deficit in 2025 there, by the way. By not giving them any extra money, we've ended up with a bad debt for 2025, right? We're going to be stuck with that bill.
It's not a shareable expense in 2025 yet.
Yeah. Yeah. It won't be a shareable, but we're still going to have to pay for it either way. So moving forward, we're not sure. It might change. The 470 might change because they're still working on the numbers. It might be a little bit lower. I'll actually go to Councillor Legacy just to see quickly. Do you know, have you heard of anything? Because since you're sitting on the committee?
Well, I know that they didn't have the proper signing authorities for a little bit. I went and I discussed with them today, and I think they're 15 on the line of credit at the moment.
Okay.
And they have been averaging 35-ish per month loss, 35 to 40. So they might be able to get through the end of the year, but they're still going to end up with a deficit that will come back in 2025. But I do have a question. The 470, if they end up using any of that for repairs, capital expenses, how does that get calculated when it comes to the RSC?
The DRC, any capital expenses in
They
new
don't qualify for
don't
the
qualify.
next.
No, because those have to be approved. So let's say that they would have a capital expense. In order to make it eligible, it would have to be brought to the committee and approved as an eligible expense.
But if we give them the 470 and they use some of that towards repairs, it wouldn't affect the amount that we receive from the RC this year, but it might in 2 years as far as the
next one, because
calculation.
that 470 is based on 2022's amount. So they go with the budget
Okay.
from the actuals from the previous year, and that's how they determine actuals or not. So if it was a capital expense that was pre-approved, then it would be in there. But if it's not, which in 2022 there's none, then that operational fee is what they're taking care of in 2022. So next year, they would look at 2023's actuals, and they would use that line.
So any repairs that might be done in 2024 would apply on 2026's calculation then?
2025, because they take the actuals from the previous year. It's not, like, the deficits are 2 years after,
Yes.
but the eligible costs are the year just before. Kind of a loop-de-loop brain.
Okay.
Councillor Willett?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We give them a 470 to run, and they end up with a surplus at the end of the year. Do we have to reimburse anything back to?
So they had a small surplus in that 2022 number. It's in the non-eligible because it nets the deficits and the surpluses.
Okay.
Yeah, it's taken out of the operational amount costs.
All right. Conseiller Leblanc?
Merci, Madame la mairesse. Moi, je regarde ça. Cette année, mettons qu'ils reviennent pour... on avait estimé, je pense, environ 65 000 là, de plus là, pour couvrir la ligne de crédit. Ça ferait aux alentours du 395 400 000 encore. Qu'est-ce qui engendre le 70 000 de plus du budget?
La différence entre le 65 000, 50 000, 65 000 qui est demandé est simplement pour pas y aller au-dessus de la ligne de crédit. C'est pas pour couvrir un déficit.
Ça fait... Mais ils ont toujours réussi à se maintenir avec moins que ça. Là. On a augmenté de pas mal. Ça me donne... Ça m'explique pas encore ce qu'il est l'autre 70 000 de plus que... Parce que là, on donne beaucoup plus. Là. On donne 150 000 de plus.
Le 470 000 représente le coût de 2022 actuel, le net revenu moins dépenses de qu'est-ce que ça leur a vraiment coûté. Donc, leur ligne de crédit, disons qu'on leur donnait 395 000, la différence, c'est ce qu'ils ont sur leur ligne de crédit. Mais c'est un déficit.
De leur coût d'opération, on leur a donné 345 000. OK? Parce que le 50 000, on l'a donné en 2023. 345 000 qu'on leur a donné. Mais leur vrai coût d'opération n'est pas 345 000. C'est un autre 65 000. Ça fait le vrai coût d'opération est 405 000 pour 2023.
C'est ça que je dis. Mais là, on parle de 470 pour 2024.
Oui.
Jusqu'à l'addition.
Probablement, d'après ce que tu peux regarder dans les chiffres, là, l'électricité a augmenté, les salaires minimums ont augmenté, le prix de tout l'équipement a augmenté. Mais là, en ayant un nouveau DG qui est là maintenant, qui va reviser, ça se peut que ça ne sera pas nécessairement le 470. Là.
Parce que je suis vraiment prêt à les aider, j'y crois beaucoup, puis je veux jamais laisser le centre aquatique fermé, là, je vais être clair là-dessus. Là. Mais je trouve que c'est un montant élevé pour l'instant. Mais écoute, s'il faut, il faut.
C'est certain que nous...
C'est juste que pour moi, tu me dis ça, mais j'avais déjà pris en considération les choses que tu as nommées, puis ça additionne pas à ça encore. Dans ma tête, mais peut-être que je fais des mauvais calculs, puis si je m'assirais avec Sonia et Steven, peut-être que je pourrais avoir d'autres affaires qui me seraient plus claires. En tout cas, comme je te dis, je suis pas contre, là, c'est juste, j'aimerais de mieux voir jusqu'à les 70 000 de plus.
But we're definitely going to be looking at efficiencies, right? That's one of the things that we're going to ask the new manager to go in and to do all this work and find out how moving forward. I'm hoping that, the 470 is not going to be the full 470, but at the same time, I don't think it's going to be 350. I predict that if there's any changes, it might be 430 as opposed to 440.
Just as a note, because the Regional Service Commission bases on 2022 actuals, that's the amount. The efficiencies in 2024 that could be brought or anything done in 2023 would affect future budgets.
Yeah. Okay. Councillor Knowles?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The new proposed formula, obviously that's been reworked a bit. When will we know, yes or no?
November 15th.
Yeah.
November
The Regional
15th?
Service Commission will be voting for the budget on November 15th.
Okay,
So,
that was my question.
easy one.
Councillor Branch?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to point out, I just wanted to add, I guess, to what Councillor LeBlanc was saying. Not only is there the $70,000, but there was also that $66,000 grant that was used for operating funds that was to be set aside, that grant from another level of government. So it's not only $70,000 variance, there's another $66,000 on top of that.
Mm-hmm. Councillor Legacy is lit up, so we'll go.
That's incorrect. First of all, they've already spent 26 towards it, so there's only 40 left, and it was already budgeted in their amount
It was already budgeted in the amount. Okay.
when they came and made the request.
Okay. All right, so we know that the 40 comes out of there, or, yeah, yeah. So it stays to the same amount for the 470, which will cover the 40,000 for the grant. Deputy Mayor Anderson?
Yeah, just clarification. So that $470,000, in that $470,000 is 40 whatever
40.
to cover the grant money that was spent?
Well, when they came and made their request, it was almost identical to the 470 that was in 2022, and the repayment of that grant was included in it.
Okay.
Okay, I thought that just occurred last year, that $66,000. I'm confused then.
Yeah, it was in last year's, but it doesn't qualify as a debt or a revenue in last year because it wasn't paid out.
It's all 2023.
Okay.
It's not touching that 470 does not include that at all.
Yeah.
Oh, hold on. Are you done?
Oh, yes, sorry.
Okay, all right, okay. Councilor Brent?
I guess where I was going with that, I thought we were told that money was spent on operating costs.
Councilor
Yeah,
Leggett.
so the revenue wouldn't have shown up or the liability. It's the 470 is what it cost them operationally. So they have an accrued payable, but it wasn't part of revenue or expenses. It wasn't included in the 470.
Okay.
Okay. Councilor Hondas?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I guess for me, it's going to really depend on what happens on the 15th. I know we've been, since 2016, it went from 250 to 295 and constantly growing every year. You know, I don't want to see the pool closed neither, but, you know, we have to be careful of our pennies. So before I can at least consider this, I'd really want to know what's going on. If we do yes to this and it doesn't fall through, then, you know, we're going to have to change it all anyway. So I think we should wait till the 15th. 470 for me is a little high. I'd like to see if we can rework it, but if that's the amount that we have to give in order to get back to 104, from what I can understand, yeah, okay, well then, you know, so be it. But I hate to say yes to something and then all of a sudden they don't live by it there. So that's my 2 cents.
I think we should leave it at 470, and then we'll find out on the 15 moving forward, and then, of course, you know, we'll go from there, but for now, yeah.
Yep.
And then we will vote our budget on the 25th, so we'll know by the time we come back where we're at with the Regional Service Commission and the cost sharing, and where we'll go from there.
Yes, no problem. Sorry, add.
Okay.
No problem.
Status quo.
That's okay. So considerations for council, the last element is the tax rate. So obviously, because of all the other considerations we just talked about, the RCMP, the Regional Service Commission, the impact on the formula for the Aquatic Center, the grants, we're not ready to recommend a tax rate. However, when we look at the transitional period for Ward 2, where did I write that? I'm looking for this being said, yeah, going for the transition period for 6 years, the associated to the municipal reform, Ward 2 would receive an increase regardless to continue their path toward recovering their portion of shared services. So obviously, we're trying to balance the budget, but there's a portion of that 315 that would be covered through the regular increase they would get through the transitional period as well. Because right now, what we're presenting is the current tax rate. It does not include year 2 or their transition to cover the transitional cost for the shared amounts. But obviously, because all the numbers shift depending on what it is, especially the RCMP that affects only Ward 2 right now, it's a big factor that enables us to calculate a suggestion for a tax rate as well as a transition, and many considerations for the Regional Service Commission that affects also everybody at the same time. So that's why you won't see any tax rate recommendations tonight. We're waiting for it to settle, but there will be the year 2 transitional impact from the municipal reform from Ward 2.
Okay.
You've made already the decision, so we can skip that one.
Yep, I think we're good to move on.
Before we move on to this one, we're done with the general fund. That was the biggest one. So, any questions on the general before we move on?
You're good to go. Did anybody want to take a quick break before we continue? No? All right.
Good? All right.
Madame Gauvin, did you need a break because you're the one doing all the speaking?
I'll drink water. I'm fine. Everything's going good. You're not
Okay.
too argumentative with me tonight, so I'm good. I'm okay. Not that you are normally. So the utility fund, that was presented the first draft on October 11th. Oh, staff behind me needed to go though.
They can go. Sneak out. Don't worry about it.
So we presented the first draft, so obviously we won't be presenting the whole expense section again, but we did adjust some transfers from the general fund. We had said that last time, that any amounts changed in the general fund affect the transfers that are come over this. So right now, the total expense budget for the utility operating fund sits at $7,790,000. And the total proposed expense budget has a decrease of $14,000 compared to last year at the end of the day. And really the changes since the last presentation are really for charges from the general fund that was reduced and a slight redistribution of employees between the general fund and the utility fund because they did, I think, like 3, 4, 5, 6 reviews to make sure that people were placed on the right spots. Thank you, Chris. So I just left the slides there just in case there are some questions, but I am skipping them because you already saw them last time. What we really want to focus on is the rates. So revenue sources, one sec. Okay. So in the rate study we presented on October 11th, I won't go through that study again, but again, for citizens wishing to see the logic behind doing that rate study, please go see October 11th meeting. The most determinant factor in establishing the new formula is the distribution of expenses between fixed and variables. It was found that 97% of expenses were variable and 3% were fixed. And I wrote 2 times variable in your packages. I apologize, it's fixed 3%. I just saw that before. However, the charges reflected in the rates are 28% fixed and 72% variable, and this means that the ratios need to are completely reversed. So if not, the higher users are paying for the lower consumption users, creating an unfair charging system because it is such a fixed system. For citizens wishing to have the presentation again, I can't stress enough, October 11th gives a lot of information. So the new proposed module that we ended up at the end of that presentation was for residential. We were going to explore, and that includes apartment buildings as well, a constant rate, which is the same rate per unit regardless of the consumption. And for the non-residential, we were not going to change the rates module because they were the one causing the variable expenses, and we need to have stability in the residential side, which is their biggest revenue, before we start looking at if it needs to be changed or not. So when we look at determining the rate, we first need to take into consideration the total expenses that need to be covered. So right now we said they sit at 7.79 million. And then we subtract all revenues that are not related to user fees, and that will give us the total revenues needed from users. Then we calculate the revenues that we would collect from the non-residential users, and then that would give us what we need to collect for residential revenues, which would enable us to determine the rate. So that's the logic that we'll take you through in order to establish the rate. So the other revenues, there's not much change from last year. It's pretty much the same for a total of $765,000. They include connection fees, surcharge and interest, fire protection, that's a transfer for water fire, transferred from the general fund, local improvement frontage fees for 109, the prior year surplus, so 1/4 of 2022 and 2021 are there. There's also the deficits from the years before that and the expenses that we saw, and then small cost recoveries. So that makes that amount there. And then for the non-residential rates, when we started looking at that, we have to consider 3 things. So first of all, since January, the CPI has increased 4%. The expenses have been relatively stable between 2023 and 2024 because of decrease in past year deficits. However, consumption has not been as high as predicted for the non-residential users, and so it's creating a gap between budgeted revenues and the actual revenues. So all that taken into consideration, for non-residential users, we would be recommending an increase of 3%. So they pay for current and the proposed per 1,000 imperial gallons, because there would be no change in the rates format. And then depending on the size, because obviously each of them have a different size of line, different size of meters, different size of setups, all of those would be pushed at a 3%. That would enable us to get $86,000 more with the 3% increase versus if we do not. As you can see, 2023 budget, it was 2.9. What we predict for 2024 right now is below that. So in order to pick up the gap, it would bring up to 2.939 with that 3%.
And we're talking, non-residential. We're talking about, Catherine and Company. We're talking about Walmart. So it's not a high consumption of water that's being used, right? So, it's not making much of a big difference. Even for Beresford, that we offer water services, there's not that much of an increase for them on the 3%. So
when you take the percentage and you put them money-wise, that's what per category would fall.
Yeah. Okay.
So that 2.939, assuming budget council approves that increase, based on the current projection, that would need the revenue to be covered by residential users at $4,085,719. When setting a rate per unit for multifamily dwellings, it's important to ensure an equitable rate is applied per unit. And since a multi-unit dwelling usually only requires a single service connection, it is fair to say that the cost of providing the service to this building is similar to that of providing it to a single-family dwelling. Since multifamily dwellings are far more sustainable than single-family homes, it is important to incentivize the development of these multi-unit dwellings to combat the detrimental effects of urban sprawl. In a true user-pay system, it is exponentially more expensive to provide water and sewer to a single-family dwelling than a multi-unit dwelling, and therefore it's important to factor at this when setting a flat rate and sewer rates for various levels of density. Therefore, this is the list everybody's been waiting for to establish the rates. So when we presented on October 11th, we said that the peak median that we saw was $845 per year for when you took the connection fee as well as the consumption. When we look at what we present there, depending on the number of units, we are talking about if you have an apartment building, for example, and it has 4, or a duplex, because that's easier, it would be considered 2 units. If you have a residential home, single residential home, it would be 1 unit. The 0 that is there is because we have some properties where they have access to connect to the water, they choose not to, but they still pay for the connection fees. So for them, the connection fee would be $336. We recommend at the 1 unit $825. And then for the 2 units, obviously, because they split the same connection, they would have a decrease at $657. Same for 3 to 4, they split the connection, so it would decrease from $598 per unit. And then for the 5 to 10, because when you have a higher apartment building, you have to increase the connection line, that increases the cost for servicing the connection fee. So we go for $697, and the 11 and up, those are quite bigger buildings that require additional amounts. Sometimes they have sprinklers. There's additional work that needs to be done. We'd recommend $712 per year. That would generate, that's the decision. That would generate the total revenue that we need. It also takes into account senior discounts. It also takes into account potential discounts where we would need to do final analysis on it. For example, if property owners choose to pay the full invoice in January, which they could have a discount there because it does minimize the use of our operational money, and instead of monthly if they choose to do so. So really, that's the recommendation. So we're looking for guidance on the non-residential, the yes or no on the 3%, and on the residential, if we continue on the flat rate format, a yes or no, and if yes, then are you okay with the rates presented?
Madame Gauvin, can you go over in detail for the elderly discount rate? So I was checking with Mr. Pettigrew today, and they, right now, presently, they get $55.95 discount every 3 months. So that's the present rate that they seem to have access, right, on average?
I think so. Total, we have 363 senior rebates totaling $75,000 per year.
Okay, so they do get the discount. So how would this discount work for this flat rate of $825? What's the percentage of discount? Because this is going to be a big factor right now for the decision. Personally, I believe that we need to go to flat rate, but we also, for me, I'm going to be saving money. I'm going to be saving a lot more money this way. And there's just me and my husband and daughter now that she's back, but normally, we'll be saving money. But for the elderlies, some of them might be paying more than what they're paying now, and that might be a good rate. But I'm just curious to see what type of discount would they get? Is it that normal of $55, so they end up having a $200 rebate out of that if they apply? Do you have the numbers?
I don't, because that would need to be discussed through the bylaw. So I do have an amount integrated in there, but we need to decide the discount for if they pay in January, how much of that could we predict would take out of that, and as well as the senior discounts. Obviously, that would be factored in on the net. We would have to make sure that it fits within that envelope, but we're confident that we can meet that discount for the senior rebate, even if there's adjustments made to it when we come to doing the bylaw and the annual discount if you pay in January.
Okay, so I purposely asked these questions, so moving forward, so we'll go around, we're lit up just about everywhere now. Deputy Mayor Anderson.
Mine will go up. You're lucky, but my water bill will go up. But that's okay. I'm not here complaining about myself. My phone has been ringing off the wall since our last meeting, whenever your presentation was made about going to the flat rate versus the meter rate. One thing that people need to understand, yes, individuals receiving the guaranteed income supplement are getting the rebate, but they have to qualify for GIS in order for them to get a rebate. For somebody to qualify for GIS, they can't make more than like $18,000 a year. So it's a very small amount of money. If somebody is single, living on their own, their threshold is about 18 and change. It could have changed by a couple dollars. But that's it. If they make more than that, they're not entitled to GIS. That's who can survive on that amount of money a year. Do you know what I mean? Same if they're a couple, increase their annual income by roughly $4,000. That maxes out a couple. They're not entitled to GIS. We have many people in this area that are on fixed incomes in the $20,000 range trying to support a household. And now their water bill is going to increase a lot. I have an issue with it. Like for me, if we're going to go to a flat rate formula, and it's not just the seniors, there's single moms out there that are struggling to make ends meet, that aren't making a lot of money and have to support their kids. How are they going to support the increase as well? So for me, like our water bill has been increasing through the roof over the last 3 years, and I get the reason why we were in the situation that we didn't have the choice but to increase the rates. I get it. But there needs to be something implemented, that it's not just a GIS qualification that's going to determine if you're going to receive a rebate or not, because the GIS is basically you're living below poverty standards. People can't afford it. So for me, there's got to be something else implemented into that besides making GIS the determining factor if somebody is going to qualify for a rebate or not, because otherwise I can't support it.
And that would be determined through the bylaw.
But we need to have that determined before we go ahead, wouldn't we?
Well, because of the amounts that are there, I'm confident that whatever modifications that we would make, we would still make it balanced, because we would take that into consideration into the discount that we give for the other ones that pay in January as well. So I'm confident that the rates that are there, we can still modify and adapt it to meet the needs. And I understand for the senior citizens, and you talked about the single mom, but there's also the single mom that has 3 kids that is also paying for more water right now than she possibly needs to eat also, because if she has 3 kids, she has more food to pay, she has sports to pay, her bill is probably higher than the $8.25 that's being proposed, or the $8.49 that we see right now, just because of the stages of life that their kids are in. Her bill could reduce, possibly, because of the number of kids that are simply in the same household.
I'd like to see that, where it would reduce, because I look at my own water bill. And, you know, a few years ago, I think I was paying $120 a bill, somewhere around there, between 100 and 132. And it was a household of 4 at that point. Now my bill's close to, I think, around 180 for one person.
And I can confidently tell you that at this rate, at $8.25 for a single house dwelling for the 1 unit, and I don't have that slide right now, but when I remember the one from last year, it's lower than pretty much most of the other municipalities. It's lower than Beresford, it's lower than St. John, it's lower than
St. John is $1,500 a year flat rate.
Beresford was last year, what, 737?
No, 830 something.
Because it had been in the 700 range.
Yeah, it increased. So it's still lower than our neighboring, because of the fact that it's a user pay system. And unfortunately, if it doesn't balance, we need to increase the rates for everybody, because we can't budget for deficits. So the only way we've been able to balance is through increasing the rate. At least this way, with a flat rate, we would at least have a guarantee of the revenues, instead of hoping and that people are, because the bills have been increases, they compensate by investing in other means or reducing their water consumption. But then when we unbalance, we have to increase the rates again.
No, and I get your logic behind it, I do. But I'm thinking of people that have low incomes, people that are on fixed incomes. I mean, like I said, again, just because you don't qualify for GIS doesn't mean you're not on a fixed income, and this isn't going to hurt you. And that's where my concern is.
Yep. Okay. Councilor Knowles?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Is there any way we could even consider having a flat rate for everybody, then still keep the metering system? The ones that actually use the more water would pay more at a reduced rate. I don't know what that rate would be. So like
Edmonton has
a
a
single
dual system.
person or a couple would pay, you know, obviously they're probably not going to use as much water as somebody, 4 or 5 or 6 people in a household. I don't know. Has that ever been tried in other municipalities? Does anybody know that?
It's being done in Edmundston. Edmundston also has the power grid, so they have maximized capabilities with their meters, where they're investing in towers to collect the meter. They don't even have people driving by. They have like towers that collect from that spot. So having a dual system like that would bring the element we're trying to take away, which is the instability of the rates. And everybody would choose the lower rates out of the two, sure, but then it means that we also have to invest in the meters and figuring out administratively, okay, so you go to that house but not that house because it has a meter or not. Are they sending the blue cards and all that billing system that goes with the meter system as well?
I mean, a flat rate established, I don't know what that rate would be. That would cover your yearly costs for salaries, maintenance, supplies. The bulk of our revenue would be on that flat rate. And then with the meters still being in place, make up the additional revenue that we would need. I don't know. Just wonder if it's ever been tried. Does it work? Do we have any data on that?
I don't think we have the system set up for it.
Yeah.
It would
No, but I mean,
be,
other municipalities, does it work? Does
well, in
anybody know that here?
Edmundston, yes, but they have the tower and the system. We would have to invest all this money in order to be able to run that way. And I'm not sure if you would even have the numbers of how much that would cost to make it
Yeah,
happen.
I'm just
Yeah,
posing the
yeah.
question. If it's been looked at, is it even feasible? I don't know. But it could be a fair system, but I don't know if it would work.
What I would say is that because remember that we have 97 fixed expenses, 3% variable. And in any pricing system that you would go, math would tell you that the formula also needs to be in the same logic.
Okay.
Councillor Willett?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm looking at it the other way. I've had seniors call me up. I've dealt with seniors all year that have got bills for 3-month water bill for $1,200 and $1,400 because they had a leak in their house. And imagine trying to budget that into your yearly savings, that you're going to lose $1,200 or $1,400 on a water bill. If they were on a fixed rate, they wouldn't have that kind of bill coming in. And the other thing is, we got people, and if you calculate just a single house without the discount, you're looking at $68.75 a month, which is a lot easier to budget into your budget than not knowing what can happen if you have a water leak or something like that and end up with a great big bill. And to top it off, how much money are we spending? Because I had to deal with Public Works a few times. How much money are we spending sending people to change water meters, and the end result is still the same? The senior still has to pay $1,200 bill. You know, like we brought it that they can reduce it once in their lifetime or whatever, but it still doesn't. The safety is not there. The safety is a lot less for the senior. They can be looking at a water bill of $1,200 or $1,400 for 3 months and still have to pay $68 a month for the rest of the year. You know, like, to me, it defeats the argument there. Whoever is going to need to budget their money is going to be able to budget it if your water bill is at a fixed number, at a fixed cost. And that's what we're going to be looking at. And for a lot less cost, or at least a little bit of a savings to the city doing it. So.
I think I've sent, at least 5 families in the past couple of months this summer to the department, and it's exactly that. And most of them were all elderlies that they had a leak that they weren't aware, and a state of panic of having to pay for it. Yeah. Councillor Burnett, and then I'll go based on the lights that went up.
Okay, thanks, Madam Mayor. I think a goal would be to keep seniors in their homes as long as possible, and I don't see this rate helping to keep people in their homes. I think it's too high. And I also think that the seniors in the city deserve a break so that we can say, all right, you know, the increased value of your house is hurting your budget, and now this is going to hurt your budget. So no, I can't agree with this going up that much money. And what's really disappointing is that I've been around for a while, and we've put millions and millions in that water treatment. Millions the taxpayers put in there, and yet we still are being asked to give them more, for them to give more and more. So no, I can't agree with it.
All right. Councillor Legacy?
Is there any, I know we talked about the workload, it wasn't able to keep up with the old method, and where we have a backlog on the meters needing to be replaced. Is there any savings as far as like salaries or positions, in the sense that we won't be needing that to the extent we do currently?
It would certainly prevent us from hiring, because right now, if we do not change, my recommendation would be to hire a second utility clerk. We need to invest a lot more in meters and we would need a lot more manpower for Public Works to be able to maintain that as well. So without it, we would certainly recommend in the next review an increase in expenses.
But there's no outright savings from switching the systems.
In the first year, it would be difficult to establish. There is possibly, if we can automate with the e-quarters, that could possibly have a reduction in fees, absolutely.
Okay.
But there's so much to put in place in the first that the savings are difficult to see exactly where they are, but the additional expenses certainly pop out.
And the number chosen here, the 825, how much wiggle room is that giving us? Because we've been running deficits for years and years and years. The infrastructure's falling apart. We can't keep up. And like you said, that's not sustainable. That's not what it should be. And I mean, we're also basing this on the leftover of all the others that aren't changing, the commercial, industrial. So if they run deficits, what authority do we have, or what power can we do to minimize a deficit again next year if we're basing it off of after their revenues, we need this amount. But if their revenues fall short, what can we do to prevent that from happening?
The difference is between, we have 339 non-residential accounts. Having everybody else on fixed, we can stabilize that fix. It's a lot easier to work with the 339 and predict better those numbers. Right now, they're part of 5,000 accounts. So it's very difficult to predict. So if we have minimal numbers to predict, we can work better with the data and the analysis. We can be better set up for it, especially since we would get actual data monthly versus every 3 months, and sometimes it's blue cards. It's an estimate. It's not even a blue card that comes in.
But as far as, like, let's say we go to the flat rate for next year, and in June we realize we're going to be running a deficit again based on consumption on the other, is that something we can look at the bylaw to change to increase during the year, or is that going to be spread across where it comes back where part of that fixed rate is going up, or is the cost going to go back to just the industrial, the commercials, the institutionals?
That same situation can happen any year, even in 2023 with everybody staying metered. So we could increase the rates mid-year for everybody metered if we thought that we were making a deficit. We choose not to. We choose to absorb the deficit and divide it in 4 years. That's what we've been doing. But even if metered stayed for everybody, we certainly have the option to increase it every month if it was. I'm not recommending it. It's still there because it's part of the bylaw. It could be reviewed.
And with the 825, is there any wiggle room, or is that we're balanced and nothing else?
I would recommend that rate. It would be difficult to be lower because, as we've mentioned, the infrastructure is so neat. Oh, you're thinking higher. Okay. Well, certainly before we have that data the first year, we want to see the impact of that 825, because if you have an apartment building that has 3 to 4 dwellings or 5 to 10, that multiplier, we want to make sure that we're not all of a sudden charging connection fees too high, and then all of a sudden they're paying for 10 connection fees when they should be paying for the diluted. So we want to make sure that that spread is okay, because ultimately we don't want to stop growth for multi-dwelling units. We want to encourage it, and we also don't want to have an impact on the apartment, because when you live in an apartment, as you can see, the per unit is lower than the 825. It costs more for us to deliver services in a single dwelling. That's why it's 825. But in multi-unit dwelling, it costs us less. So the unit is also less for those. So when we look at those. So ultimately, we want to stabilize that, because if you have all of a sudden owner where the multiplier is increasing too much, that's not the intent. It's supposed to not to stay somewhat similar right now on the impact. Then they have to increase their rates also for their tenants, and that's not the goal. The goal is to bring something stable.
The reason I say that is because I can just see, yes, we can revamp the discounts for seniors, fixed income. So that's going to be a discount. We're talking about doing a discount if it's paid all up front. I see that starting to cut away at the bottom line again, and I don't want us to run short again and have to increase, because the whole point of switching, in my mind, to the flat rate is that going forwards, we're not going to have these random increases based on consumption. It's going to be based on oh, the chemicals went up, oh, this piece of equipment broke down. It's actual tangible costs that we can explain, and not, oh, well, we miscalculated what this business was going to use, which is impossible to predict clearly after the past few decades at this point trying to do that. It's not a sustainable system, so I just want to make sure we're starting at the right point.
Yeah, I understand.
Okay. Councillor Branch, I'm coming this way now.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Living in Ward 2, I don't really have a baseline to compare to, so I'm just kind of curious. Like, did you look at the bell curve? Like, what, how large is the fluctuation in price? Like,
The bell curve is
and then
845.
also, like, how many households will see a material increase in rates, and how many will see a material decrease?
So the goal is to say somewhat similar. I know that the bell curve is at 845. So obviously the single dwellings, the one unit, the residential one, depending on how many people are in there, it's kind of difficult to see because it's so based on consumption. You could have a one dwelling where it's 1,300 and the neighbor is a 25-year-old, no kids, will use a lot less water. So it's difficult to compare, but I know that the annual bell curve is 845.
Yeah, but
We
again,
ha-
I guess what I'm curious about is how flat it is, right? Like, how many households are outliers, right? How many are going to see a large increase, and how many are going to see a large decrease, and
So
how
I don't
much is
know.
that?
In the package, I had a slide. It's not in this. Last week for the water sewer rate, there was a slide where all the per increments of 100, it was all listed there, and I had highlighted a section on the PowerPoint. Unfortunately, it's not on there, but in October 11th's package, there was a slide that listed every increments of 100, the number of households and the median for those.
Okay,
Yes.
I'll go back and look for that.
Yeah.
So we have a 3% increase on non-residential. So what does this represent as a percentage increase for residential users?
Residential, we are trying to maintain, because as I said, the multi-unit dwellings, right now they pay for one connection. Right now they would pay for 3 times the connection, but dilute it amongst them 3. So we need to have a first year as a baseline before anything else. I can tell you that that's the calculation that it takes to balance the budget, but as a baseline, is it an increase, is it a decrease? It depends on what you've been using before.
Okay, so on average, it wouldn't increase. We just don't know where people fall within that average. Again, that comes back to the curve. Okay, and I have one other question. I guess when Councillor Willett was talking about breaks and stuff like that, and, people with very high bills. So how are we going to identify that going forward if people's water is not monitored? Like, do we have a mechanism in place that we can identify that, or are those leaks just going to continue in perpetuity and our water usage will go off the charts?
Mr. Abernathy?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. So I think it's important to understand that that where those actual costs come from, as Mr. Gauvin described, was the fixed versus the user. At the end of the day, those leaks and those small leaks in people's houses or whatnot, if they're a running toilet or something that's not noticeable within the house, we're not going to notice that at all as far as an operating cost to the city, right? So at the end of the day, whenever you see those high bills and whatnot, it's very little cost, but it's only 3% variable cost to us, right? So at the end of the day, that the main cost to us is providing the service to your property line. So once it gets into your house, the worry that I have is that somebody would not notice a leak and it would damage their house. That obviously easier to notice. But a leak that's not going to damage a house, I really don't see any effect on us whatsoever.
No, and I get the whole variable versus fixed thing. I guess I was just thinking, a leak could be like that for 10 years, right? So as you have that multiplying across all of our users, that would never become an issue.
Well, the thing is, over multiple users is a good point, but you're going to hear your toilet run eventually. Somebody's going to come to your house and say, hey, your toilet's running, things like that, if it's not something you've noticed. And if it's something that's, like I said, major, it's going to surface in your house somewhere. So that's something that...
But
you
the
know.
point, but I guess where I'm going with this is then where's the incentive for people to fix that leaking tap or running toilet if they're not paying any more money?
Again, there really isn't an incentive as long as it doesn't ruin your house, right? Like, that's the incentive, as long as it doesn't cause any damage. As on our side of things, when speaking to our water treatment plant manager, I mean, we used to treat 9.5 million liters a day. We're down to 5.5, 6, right? So at the end of the day, we've got plenty of water. We're not worried about these small leaks within houses and whatnot. You know, major leaks are going to surface outside, and we're going to see them. They're going to affect pressures. Fix those, obviously. But small leaks within the house, I mean, it's not really an operational concern for us.
Okay, and going back to our last meeting, you're not concerned about the environmental impact of that because we have to flush hydrants and use that water now.
Exactly,
So if it's
yeah.
going down, somebody's leaking toilet or we have to flush a hydrant, makes no difference.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
All right, good. Conseiller Leblanc?
Merci, Madame la mairesse. Pour revenir sur certains commentaires qui ont été faits ici de soir, moi, je peux te dire, écoute, j'ai élevé une famille de 3 enfants, ou nous avons, parce que si j'oublie ma femme, on va le faire rappeler tout à l'heure. Surtout avec tout le travail qu'elle a fait. Mais la réalité des choses, c'est que le frais fixe est beaucoup plus simple à budgéter, surtout dans cette période-là. C'est très difficile pour un jeune couple, c'est très difficile pour une jeune maman ou un jeune papa avec des jeunes enfants. Et je peux vous assurer, depuis 2001, juillet 2001, je suis dans ma maison, j'ai jamais eu un coût plus bas que le 825 proposé. Pas une fois. D'une année, pas une année. Je pense que le plus bas était comme 50$ de plus que ça. Ça donne quoi, là, 22 ans? Je connais des gens qui vivent seuls dans une maison dans la mienne, et puis ils payent ça. Seul, un homme seul. Ou presque. Je pense pas que ça va changer grand-chose. De ce côté-là, et pour les jeunes couples, c'est certain que ça va les aider à pouvoir budgéter. Et ça va les économiser de l'argent. Certains, moi, je ne sais pas lequel disait tantôt, une jeune maman avec 2 ou 3 enfants, elle va sauver de l'argent avec ce système ici. Avec ça, j'y crois beaucoup. Après ça, les frais de service pour la ville. Il faut prendre ça en considération aussi. Les appels, toutes les choses que les gens ont déjà mentionnées. Et avec les amendements qu'on va pouvoir placer plus tard, ou les bylaws, si vous voulez, pour aider justement les gens qui sont en difficulté, parce qu'il ne faut quand même pas les oublier, là, ces gens-là, on ne va pas les laisser au dépourvu là, pour tout. Puis ça nous assure d'arriver et de faire notre budget et d'arrêter de rouler des déficits comme on le fait depuis, je pense que c'était 20 ans que tu avais reculé, là, que tu nous avais montré, mais on avait des déficits.
Pas 20 ans, mais ça fait un bout.
Oui, mettons 15. À un moment donné, il faut que ça arrête. Là. Puis si on réussit à le faire d'une façon que ça ne coûte pas à nos citoyens ou presque pas, je pense qu'il faut en profiter. Parce que sinon, à tous les années, là, on va revenir l'année prochaine, l'année d'après, puis on va augmenter les frais encore de des pourcentages ridicules. Le monde va essayer d'économiser encore plus. Ou bien il va arriver des situations imprévues. L'eau, on en a en masse. C'est certain que j'espère, moi je crois à nos citoyens, là, quand j'entends des gens dire le monde va juste gaspiller de l'eau. Ben non, on est en 2023, là, on a toute une certaine sensibilité à l'environnement. Et je crois 100% aux citoyens de la région. Ça fait que, pour moi, ça serait un oui sur toute la ligne.
Parfait. Merci. Councillor Hondas?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have faith in our team. I think if they put this together with the right attitude, and I think they'd have our citizens in mind when they did this. I think this is a perfect opportunity to try it. I understand that there's people that have different times and harder times, but if we can make the bylaw to suit those people to help, I think this is a great plan. So I'm not going to sit here and nitpick it. I totally have 100% confidence in you guys from the day you brought it up. So I think this is the way to go for us to be able to balance our budget. We have to take into consideration our seniors, of course. You know, they're a big part of our city, and also the people that are single mothers and single fathers too, that we have to take in consideration also. But I think if we cross our T's and dot our I's, this is going to be best for everybody. So I'll support it.
Thank you, Councillor Hondas. I'll give my 2 cents on this as well. I agree. I mean, not because I'm going to pay less. I'm not going to be paying that much less. You know, I'm just saying it's a little bit less. If not, we'll be back here again, and we'll be looking at increasing the rates again and increasing the rates again. We need to balance. We're at a deficit, and when these deficits come into play, so if we don't move forward, and it's $68.50 a month, you do that on a monthly plan that comes out of your, you know, your account. If you're in a position that you can pay it all at once, great. But this way, you know, you've got that sound mind, and moving forward, it's a win-win for the city to be able to, because we have increased. How much have we increased since 2000? Well, since we've been councillor, 2016, we've increased. How high have we increased?
I don't have the percentage in my brain right now, but
Yeah.
it's quite a bit. It's
29% we've increased.
Yes.
So moving forward, if we can't balance and we don't go to a fixed rate, you're going to come, we have to balance. So we're going to come forward and say, in order to balance, we need to increase the rate again. So we're no further ahead. And the people that are going to be upset with us, they're going to be upset either way. So we're either going to increase or we're just going to give a fixed rate for everybody. $8.25, when I started trying to find out over the weekend, I was looking to see what other rates and if they had flat rates. I mean, St. John is paying $1,500. I know we may look at it as being big, but for a lot of people, that's going to be massive savings. And then someone like me that have no flowers in front of my house, I might actually put a little flower garden because I am cheap. I don't like to spend money. I might actually have a small flower garden in front of my house. You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised. We'd have some green grass like Beresford. All right. Okay. So the question this evening is what you're looking is, are we in agreement? Do we have to give you guidance this evening? 3% for non-residential?
Yes, because if it doesn't go forward, then next draft, we'll have to figure out what the new rate per consumption would be.
Okay. So exactly. So then you're going to have to come back and do a rate for consumption. Okay. Yes. So I'll go around for council with the 3% increase for non-residential. Are you in agreement with that? Okay, now, the flat rate. So we're not in a voting structure, but I am going to look this way, and I'm looking for a yes and a no. Yes? No. No? Well, we need to make, the curve is 8:45. Because if not, she's coming back and she's going with the rate of a increase of a water rate. Okay. Legacy? Yes? Okay. Willett? Scary? Yes? Knowles? Anderson? Oh, you still got to vote? It's not a vote, but no. No, we're not, no. Well, then, moving forward, she would put in the budget with a flat rate. Okay. All right. Flat rate. Yeah. That would be the next step, is that we really need to look at how we can work for the elderlies, how can, you know, we have to change our bylaws, so we'll move forward and see what can be done.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll think about for sure.
Okay. Perfect. All right. Any other ones?
No.
We're done?
No, oh yes, another ones, yes.
Yeah.
Those are quick ones, though.
Yes, we're at Capitol.
Jeez.
No.
All right. So we're not rehashing the full capital budget. Don't worry. So the utility, there's no change since last time. So it's just going to be an opportunity if you have questions for the utility side. For the capital side, we did not make changes. However, council asked question for about the streets last time. So this is the list that was presented on October 11th. And we had identified the 2 streets for Basin paving, and Reardon is Industrial and Foley paving. And then we also had the Chalar Street and San Ann, which are the funded ones. So in order to answer council's questions for the street, Mr. Abernathy has prepared, I just left the slide there in case there is questions, but I'm not intending to go through them. I'm just looking for Mr. Abernathy's slides, one sec. There you go. So I will give him the seat. Oh, no, go there. Switching.
I've been sitting all day, so I'm gonna move that across. Right on. All right, it's getting late, so I'll zip through it real quick. Basically, what I wanted to do was, I know at the last presentation we had looked at a couple of streets, and there were some questions. You know, you were looking at those streets. Why were you looking at those versus other streets? So just wanted to give a little bit of a background of the reasons why we chose the streets we did, the reasons why, in our opinion, and again, this is opinion. Obviously, the final say is with you, but in our opinion, it's probably the best bang for the buck, and what we feel is what we're going to get the best longevity out of our money for. So just to quickly go through the types of rebuilds that we have. I went through this in my other presentation, but a straight overlay is literally just tack coating a street and paving over top of it. We do not recommend doing this. The last one I did, I think, when I was a student back here in 2004, and it was the hill going up St. Anne, and you know what kind of shape that's in now. So that does not last. We do not recommend at all. 3 to 6 years is expected life on that. Mill and seal is what you see DTI typically do on the highways. And the reason for that is because they have a great structure underneath the highways. You don't see a lot of this on the highways. You see deterioration of asphalt. So that's why mill and seal is a great option for any street. You know, like St. Peter, that's where we did a mill and seal. St. Anne Street, you know, streets that are not heaved, they're just mostly asphalt deteriorated. Now, pulverize and pave is what we're really into right now. We have a pulverizing machine, we have a paving machine, we can do all that work in-house besides the grading, but we're working on getting some equipment to do that as well. And we really feel like that 35,000 per 100 meter is really our sweet spot for bang for buck there. You get 8 to 15 years, sometimes even more if you get a really good structure out of it. A great example is the upper section of St. Peter Avenue in front of you know, Honda and all that. That was pulverized and paved by DTI per our recommendation, and it's lasted beautifully. You know, I don't know if anybody remembers what kind of shape that road was in before. It was terrible. It's really in great shape still. I think we did that. I can't remember what year. I think it was 2014 or 2015 we did that street. And it's really lasted well, so we're going to get really great life out of that on a street that has 7, 8, 9,000 cars a day. So we're still getting great life out of a street that has high vehicles traffic. And then the next line is full excavation and rebuild. So that's whenever you really have those heaves and whatnot in the road, and you need to rebuild that structure, and your pulverized won't do. An example of this is what we did on West Drive and what we did in Middle River. We did a small section on Riverside as well. These, you know, they serve their purpose for those streets that are in really bad shape, and they have heavy vehicular traffic, and you need that structure underneath to be rebuilt. That's what we do there. Unfortunately, the cost is more than double everything else, but you get that life expectancy out of it at the end of the day. So types of failures, I talked a lot about asphalt failures, so the you know, high traffic volumes and large commercial traffic and the asphalt quality, that's just that surface layer. When you don't have heaving or structural issues, those are asphalt failures. And then base failures are when you have poor drainage underneath the road, you have poor materials underneath the road, which, you know, inhibit drainage, and then your aggregate strength tends to break down and kind of turn to mush after so many years of cyclic loading. So it's important to just identify asphalt failures and base failures, two important parts here when we move on to the next slides. So an example of an asphalt failure would be what you saw on St. Anne Street over the last few years on the upper part, not the lower part. You know, that raveling or that delamination of that top coat of the asphalt or kind of rutting that gets worn into the asphalt, that's from either poor quality asphalt or high traffic volumes. So in that situation, again, like St. Peter, you know, a mill and seal is a great option there. You're just basically putting a new coat on top of there and kind of, you know, it's a fresh coat of paint basically, but you'll get good life out of it because you have a good bones underneath. And so alligator cracking is a base failure. So we see lots of this in town. There's some examples on some of the streets that have been requested to be fixed over the last few years of alligator cracking. When you see this, pulverizing is not going to work. Milling and sealing is not going to work. You have to excavate that street because that alligator cracking basically is an indication that base material is moving all the time. It's every time a car hits it, it's a sponge and it's moving. Could be poor drainage underneath. It could be just repeated loading with poor material underneath, for, there's streets in town that were just literally ditches were dug and thrown and they pave on top. And this is what you get whenever you don't put a quality structure underneath that drains. So again, they must be fully excavated and rebuilt. Like I said, streets that are mentioned in town, Coppin Crescent is one that is severely alligator cracked and certainly needs an excavation. So heaving base failures are streets like St. Anne Street that you saw on the upper end of St. Anne Street. If you can correct that base drainage by doing some ditching beforehand and then letting that dry and then pulverizing, you're probably going to get good life out of that street. So we see a lot of this in the industrial park, and that's why we feel that getting some proper drainage there, pulverizing and repaving that street is the best plan there as well. Same thing on Basin that we recommend is that's the sweet spot for pulverize and pave as well. We're hoping to get good life out of those streets. So I kind of flew through this really quickly just to give you an idea of the reason why we recommend certain ones over the others. And there is a spreadsheet in your packages. It's a little small, so I'm not sure we'll be able to see it on here. It's in here as well.
Yeah, use your loop.
One of these two.
Construction priority rankings.
So, Mr. Abernathy, that portion that you just showed us, is that part in our package? No way.
No.
No. Is there a possibility that we could get that? And I'll
Oh, yeah,
tell
for
you
sure.
why, because if someone talks to me, I want to know what I'm talking about, and I
Yeah.
don't know anything about roads.
For sure,
So, the more we learn, the better we get at this job. So, and then I can say, yeah, but you can't do that because this road, you need that.
Exactly.
Right,
Yeah.
okay.
So if you see the main thing to take away here is if you see that alligator cracking, we can't just throw a slab of pave on top of that. We can't just mill that and pave that and away we go. So this is super small here. Yeah. So if you look at the spreadsheets that we had, oh, this is not really helping here either. Oh, there we go. Anything in green is what's planned in our current capital 5-year plans. Anything that's in red is what is a provincially designated highway. So those are the responsibility of the provincial government. We put forth our 5-year provincially designated highway plan. And you'll notice that a lot of those streets are high up on this priority list because they're designated highways. They have high vehicle counts, and they're super old. So they've been neglected for years and years and years, and they definitely need some rebuilds. So a lot of what you see there is provincially designated highways, and unfortunately our hands are tied as far as getting those rebuilt by what the province approves for when we put that 5-year plan in. So what happens is we have engineering students come in every year and they go out and they do an evaluation of the street. So they basically give every street, it's a subjective score. It's basically their opinion of how bad every street is. We review it and we have a good idea what the streets look like as well. But that score is combined with the age of the infrastructure underneath, the amount of water leaks and the amount of money that we spend on those streets in maintenance. And it's also combined with traffic counts. So we have an automatic traffic counter that we can put on a pole, and we have traffic counts throughout the entire city. So we have vehicular traffic at every street. So we take all that information, it's plugged together in a formula, and that spits out a ranking as far as a rebuild, priority list. Okay, so these are in rebuild priority list. Obviously, there's a couple of outliers because, like Monroe Street, for example, is over 100 years old, the infrastructure underneath it, so that kind of bumps up the priority list. The vehicular traffic is quite low, so we're not going to recommend doing that right away. I mean, it's kind of like just a little access street off the side. It's not something that we recommend rebuilding before some of the major streets that are on this list. So that's just a little background on how we chose the streets that we did choose. There you'll see a column at the end of the list here that shows kind of some extra factors on top that'll add a scoring point. So you'll see your Superior Middle School. Since it's a school zone, we feel like redoing the sidewalks and whatnot is probably a good idea. It's having dangerous sidewalks are not good in a school zone. Or an area where, in the downtown where there'd be a lot of senior traffic and whatnot, wheelchairs, everything else. Obviously, we don't want to have big gaps and things in our sidewalks or our crosswalks. So adding that there is important. No pedestrian access, I think it's probably Basin Street, that lower side of Basin. Oh, Shallore Street, actually. So that's a street that doesn't have any sidewalks right now. It's a recommendation from that active transportation plan. So there was an extra 2 points added for that one. So a couple, special circumstances here and there that are added on top of that. So there's two lists here. The one that we're looking at right now is the full rebuild list. This is the stuff that we contract out. It's full excavations, it's water, sewer, storm, everything else. And it's just because I picked the wrong one when I clicked on it. The resurfacing priority list is the one that we're looking at. You mind setting me up here again?
So Miramichi Road has always been on the list and is still on #1 high priority list. I think what we need to do is within the budget with the DTI department, especially going into, we've had Miramichi lists on the list, but when we get funding from the government, sometimes they choose which street that we are going to repair.
Yeah.
So it becomes more difficult, but we are going to really try to put pressure. In the meetings that I'm going to be having is try to get Miramichi done.
Typically, they go with what we ask for.
Yeah.
It's just that what we ask for, it's you have Miramichi Avenue that needs a whole lot of attention, but over the last few years, St. Peter was getting into really, and we did Sunset a few years ago. So there's certain streets that just jump to the top. If they have a really bad year, they'll jump to the top. Right now, we have Miramichi on there because it's a multi-year project, and if we don't get started on it, we're never going to get done, right? So for us, it lines up very well with our next run of gas tax funding that's going to come through, and so our small community fund, the new name escapes me there, but the former gas tax. If that lines up, then we're going to be able to do the water and sewer, the storm, the sidewalks, and everything along with that, and do $2 million chunks as opposed to just having the province do $1 million, $1 million, $1 million.
Yeah.
We won't get anywhere there, and we won't get our water and sewer fixed. So,
Yeah.
Miramichi Avenue is certainly a main transmission area for our water and sewer. It's the cause of a lot of our issues in East Bathurst. So we're looking to get that fixed.
And at the rate that they're charging, hopefully we'll get quite a bit of money this time because everything keeps going up. Carbon taxes are going up, so let's see if municipality is going to see some of that.
We certainly haven't seen any increase in the amount of money given for provincial and highways over the last little
No.
bit. So unfortunately,
Yeah.
yeah. So this is the super awkward here. Okay, so here you'll see these are the resurfacing lists, and you'll see some streets on here that are also on the rebuild list, but it's because we feel like we may never get there to rebuild them, and we can't leave them in such bad shape that we never redo them. Miramichi Avenue is on there just because we don't know where that provincially designated highway thing is going. And you'll see St. Anne Street, Levesque Street. These are all streets that really need to be rebuilt. They don't just need to be resurfaced. But in our eyes, when we look at our asset management and we look at the amount of capital money being allocated every year, both in utility and general, we're never going to get to Levesque Street, right? And it's done right now. So there's a good chance that we would probably recommend doing a pulverize and pave there, or a small excavation and pave before going down and doing the utilities. So that's what this list is. And again, it's the exact same. It's got that priority of vehicular traffic, subjective condition rating, and then it also takes into account utility age, where if utilities are 100 years old, we're not going to want to do the pave on top. We feel like we'll probably need to prioritize those above others. So utility age is there as well, but doesn't play as much of a factor in the straight rebuilds. So earlier tonight, I think Melanson Subdivision was brought up. That would be something that would fall on this list here. I'm assuming it's there. No, this is not. Well, that's because there's so many bad streets ahead of it there, but it is it is bad. Well, it's on the list. The list is multiple pages long. I'd ask Andrew for just a smaller list. If you would like a package of the entire list, I can provide that to you as well. I just figured if we had multiple lists, you'd be
Those are
flipping through pages.
the top scored
This
ones.
is the top scores, yeah. So a one-pager of the top scores is what I requested for this presentation, but I can certainly get you a package of the entire spreadsheet, yeah. at the end of the day. But again, Melanson would be something that would be considered here. We would consider rebuilding that because the infrastructure is from the early 70s. It's still in pretty good shape. We don't get a ton of water leaks there. So that's something that would be on this list as well.
At 80,000 per 100 meter.
No.
More than that?
That's like we spoke a while ago, that has curbs and sidewalks and storm and everything, not
So it's
sidewalks,
even
sorry,
more.
but curbs and storm, so that's a full excavation and rebuild probably with a contractor at this point. We're
Okay.
not really equipped to do
All
that
right.
right now.
Oof, okay.
So, our recommendation hasn't changed. I know there was a request to have some discussion about it, so I'm kind of leaving that open for discussion if anybody wants to chat about it. Right now, we're recommending that second section of basin going down towards Little River Bridge, and also two section in the industrial park, Reardon Avenue and Foley in the section of University.
So I'm going to go to council. So if we're able to increase with 50,000, which I think we're able to find some money if we can balance the budget, right? So what's the wish list? Councillor Willett.
Wish list, all of them.
Property taxes
Wish
would go
list.
up immensely.
No, definitely, it just shows that we definitely need more money in the budget for the roads, for the streets and down. I'm sure the people on Couture Street are real appreciative when they turn into their street and don't lose their dentures going in. You know, like, we just need more. You're right, we need to finish Basin all the way down, and we need to do the other streets, I think, right at the bottom too. I don't know if we want to talk to ATV Trail and they'd like to donate their money, if we did give them any, to cut down that hill at the bottom on the other side of Basin Street where the railroad tracks were, because that's a danger in itself. But yeah, if we can pulverize and just resurface one or two more like we did on Couture Street would be great. So nothing that we need to go dig into, or like we're going to do on Basin Street for this year, but if we can at least do one or two more of those ones that we're just resurfacing, at least people would see that we are trying real hard to get.
Yeah, we're really trying to stretch the dollars, and
Yes.
the great thing about the streets like a Couture Street and a Basin is, like I said, they're on the outskirts a little bit. So at the end of the day, it's, you know, they're ditches and whatnot. Now, we could go to McDonald Street and do a similar job, but you know, you're talking a little bit more of a business district area. You know, personally, I'd like to see curbs and a storm system put in that area. So that's the kind of stuff that we really need to make decisions on. And you know, it's one thing to just kind of make the streets, you know, drive a little bit better, but at the end of the day, you know, these business districts and whatnot, they do need to be elevated a little bit and kind of bring up that level of service as far as storm is concerned and whatnot in those areas. You know, try and catch that storm instead of sending it into ditches, you know, right off of St. Peter Avenue. So these are things that we need to consider as well, right? It's Basin Street and all that, you know, we're never going to put storm on Basin, so it makes sense to go ahead and do that. Couture as well, same thing.
And our workforce is just getting better and better at what we're doing. If you look at Couture Street is.
Yeah. And I think we want to get into being able to do those, you know, curb and storm and everything else. It's just, what is it going to take away from our maintenance is the real tough question, right? So
That'd be the other part of the budget where we need more people to work.
exactly. Yeah, exactly.
All right. Mr. Abernathy, I think I talked about that street. I had a gentleman that called me. It's on St. Peter's Avenue. It's by Pizza Delight. So all the side streets on the right have been fixed except that one small street with
Major
a few
Lane.
houses. What is it called?
Major Lane.
Major Lane.
Yeah.
That one, would that be under which category would that one fall?
That one we would be pretty comfortable doing a pulverize and pave. There's no real way to catch the water on that street. There's no drainage at all, but it's very narrow. I don't think we'd be able to add ditches or add, you know, really, you know, short of putting in a full storm system, we wouldn't be able to catch that water anyway. So I'd be comfortable doing a pulverize and pave there.
Because it's not very far. There's not that many meters, right?
We put an estimate together for
Yeah.
it already. It would be bigger than what we did on Couture Street, I believe.
Really?
If we were to do end to end, yeah. If my memory serves me correctly there, yeah.
All right. Is that one on the list too?
It is.
Yeah.
It's got very low traffic volume, though.
Yeah.
All streets are on the list, right?
Okay.
They're there, but this one does
And it's
have
based
very-
on traffic volume? Okay.
Yeah, well, not all.
Right.
It's condition and traffic volume.
Yeah.
But that one would literally have 50 cars a day, right, or less.
Okay.
Whereas Basin, you're in the 3,500, 4,000 cars a day. So that plays a big factor in it.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. All right, do we have any other questions? No? Well, thank you for taking the time to explain this. Actually, it's,
No problem.
you know.
So I'll get that list together for you, the
Yeah.
complete list.
And your PowerPoint, like that little portion of
Yeah,
the
for sure.
PowerPoint. If we can get that, so I can get familiar and know what I'm talking about, or pretend that I know what I'm talking about.
No problem.
Thank you.
I'll let you go.
So really, unless there are questions about utility capital that you want to relook at it, anything, or any other items, that would conclude the for funds first draft.
Okay, so Madame Gauvin, what's the next step? So we've gone through it all. You're going to review it. We're going to find out with the RCMP what's happening. Is this going to be brought back to another meeting prior to our voting on November 25th?
Well, it's kind of
25th?
difficult to say the steps
20th?
because the public meeting is on the 20th.
20th, sorry.
Regional
Okay,
Service
November 20th.
Commission is on the 15th. We don't know what that information will be, what it will impact. Will we have to decrease, increase? So honestly, the initial plan was to bring back, after this, we're going to integrate everything. If we had all the information, come back on the 6th, and then propose tax rate at that time if we had everything. Don't think we'll have everything on that date. So I think we're going to have to adjust as the information comes in, and when we have the missing information that are material, then we'll propose a date and come back, because I'm not even sure that the 20th is feasible, considering that the Regional Services Commission's budget is only on the 15th.
Do we
So-
have stretch rate, like, or do we have flexibility there? So do we have to do it on November 20th?
Well, legally, the act says it's due on November 15th. So even at the public meeting on the 20th, we were
We're already late.
just because the public meeting falls on the third Monday of every month.
Okay.
So I would certainly prefer it earlier than later, but numbers when they come in. Unfortunately, the numbers that we're waiting on are external and out
Numbers.
of our.
Okay. Councillor Willett?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. That was going to be my question. Are we looking at any fines or just a slap on the wrist if we don't bring in the budget at the right time?
Last time I got a letter, so I think we're good.
You got a letter? Well,
And
maybe that's what the provincial government needs to understand, that we need the numbers too, so.
And I can
they
tell you
can-
that we're not the only municipality in that same boat right now, honestly. When we talk to our fellow treasurers and CAOs, they're all waiting for our CMP numbers. Regional Service Commissions with the municipal reform, all of that impact their deadlines on their budget, because before, if the RCMP was charged to the province, their deadline for the budget is March 31st. It doesn't matter. For us, it does. So because of the budget date. So that's part of the transition with the municipal reform, and we're not the only ones in the same boat. So we're all trying to kind of adapt to
Yeah.
it.
I don't think we should panic till we get the numbers then.
Yep. Perfect. Deputy Mayor Anderson?
Thank you, Your Worship. So my concern is this. I've been kind of saying, and Mayor Chamberlain can back me up, I find that, especially with the Regional Service Commission, I find that not necessarily that our meetings are too far apart, but I just don't feel that we have enough information with such a short amount of time to go till we vote. Hypothetically, if things don't go well with the vote at the Regional Service Commission on the 15th, where does that leave us? Because we have to have that budget approved before we can go ahead. So if that budget hypothetically is not approved on the 15th, then what?
We would probably not be ready to vote on our side on the 20th for sure.
Oh, 100%.
It would be taken off the agenda. That's probably what would happen.
Can you repeat that? What would happen?
Taken off the agenda.
We'd have to take it off our
just
agenda.
for
Yeah.
lack of information to finalize our budgets, because it does impact a lot on the tax rate. And for example, that 50,000 for the roads, the grants, all of that, it's
Yeah.
all contingent on those two major items.
And that's been a concern of mine, is just lack of information. And at the last Regional Service Commission meeting, I brought that up in a public meeting, that there's information that we still don't have that we feel is necessary in order to be able to move forward in our decision. Do you know what I mean? And I know there was things that was going to be brought back, but there was one item, I think it was with regards to the planning department. I asked for a time frame, and I was told up to 3 weeks. We don't have 3 weeks. So I have a lot of concerns with that going forward, just because I don't know what's going to happen during that vote, and that's only in 2 weeks.
Christmas is coming soon.
Yes, ma'am.
Agreed.
Okay, well, all right. Well, thank you, everybody. Merci, Madame Gauvin. In all honesty, her and her department put so much work. Like, even this afternoon when I was here, these weren't even ready and printed. They were still trying to work on numbers. And when you're trying to balance a budget and you don't know and you don't have your final numbers, great job to everyone in the team. And it's not left unnoticed, all the dedicated amount of time this time of year. Definitely going to deserve a Christmas break or vacation or something after. Once we can balance and move on, I think everybody will deserve some nice nice days off to just kind of just unwind and relax and start the new year fresh.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
After we
you.
balance. If we don't balance, I may just not show up anyways, but we'll see.
I may not show up. No, we need you. We need you. All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for being with us on Facebook. If you're still logged in, probably not. 3.5 hours later, I don't think so.
Thank you.
Bye. Have a good evening.